Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. My name is Brent Frayne. I'm the host. Today is part 3 of Disability for Dummies. The show is also known as PWD Allies Podcast. Check out your favorite podcast where you find it best suited for you, and listen when you're on the go. Today, I have our great panel joining us as usual, and we're going to dive into a lot of there's factual statements, there's funny statements. I mean, depends on if you think they're funny. I mean, Disability for Dummies, it's not funny, it's a lived experience. But hey, it's like the old book. I remember the DOS, Neil. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, the whole point of doing this is to, we always take the kind of the lighter side of things on the show, like on purpose, right? I mean, you kind of attract people with honey, so to speak. But this whole thing has got a serious, it's got a serious bend to it, right? So it's presented in a fun way, but we're talking about, serious statements here.
It's like I got the pink unicorn sitting behind me. I mean, that's quite a serious statement when people say, "Well, why does he have a pink unicorn sitting behind him?" I mean, maybe for our listeners and our viewers watching live today, maybe go quickly before we dive into our series today. Tell them about the pink unicorn. Why is there a pink unicorn?
Well, actually, Brent, that actually is going to be statement number 15, so we could actually leave that for we can actually leave that for next week, actually, because that's gonna be one of the segments. But for anybody that's been a long time follower of the channel, they know that I love talking about pink unicorns. But I'm just gonna leave that for next week because we're gonna devote a whole segment to that one. So we'll wait for that one.
Something to look forward to. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, the way we're doing this is it's basically we're just talking about true statements, and it's kind of Captain Obvious true statements. And the way I wanted to envision it is like I said, speed dating, going around and around as many times as we wanted to, and kind of think about going through an art museum where you're looking at a painting on a wall and saying, what does that painting mean to you? It's same thing. We can say, like, what does that statement mean to you, and give your Cole's Notes knee-jerk reaction to what a particular statement is. And that's kind of the idea of the show. Like, very simple, Captain Obvious thing. And we'll go through all these. And so last week we went through statements 1 through 5. I can go through a quick rundown of 1 through 5.
Sure.
And then we'll just go right into grade 6 through 10 today. But so we had last week, if you wanted to tune in to last week's one, we had the moral compass check. Any claim that vulnerable and disabled are well taken care of is false. That was statement number 1. Number 2 was having a disability is hard. Number 3 is disability is an added personal expense. The 4th statement, a disability life is worth living. And the 5th statement was Provincial PWD Shelter Allowance of $375 or $500 per month is discriminatory. So those are the 5 things we covered. So if that sounds interesting to anybody, they can go back and rewatch the one from last week. So having said that, we'll go on to statement number 6. And I don't know if anybody has cheated and looked ahead, but I've got them all copied at the bottom of the video here already. And they're on the previous videos we've done as well. So anybody can cheat and follow along if they want.
Yeah.
But here we go with statement number 6. Are you ready?
All right.
Disability income support is an obligation, not charity. So again, disability income support is an obligation, not charity. What is anybody want to jump in first on that?
I'll go. So with being in Ontario, I went and read a bunch of old essays from like the 90s about disability. So basically, they had an overflow of people that are on welfare, Ontario Works with the disability, so they made the disability program. But they came with their biases, they came with their judgments. It wasn't like they made the new program with new people. They just trained the Ontario Works people to handle the disability file. So that's why a lot of us have issues with our caseworkers, because they're coming in with a pre-programmed negative judgmental view of person with disabilities, because the program is trained that way. The program is generally like it's generational program to look at a person with a disability as if they're lazy or as if they don't try hard enough, because the government designed it that way. The government literally designed it in a way that we're set up to fail. And then they added the other things. So like how you can work and earn an income while on ODSP, and then how they gradually increase the assets and they gradually increase the income threshold for working, is because they like it's a weird, they designed it quickly because there's overflow, and then they, as they got feedback and complaints, then they designed it more for the needs of the people that are using the program. But like the older caseworkers, they're still there. They're still feeding that negative messaging. They're still feeding that negative like set up to fail mentality, because they're not retiring. And they're training, they're training the new people. So if they train the new people, they come up with the same thing. Where like I said it last week when I was in the office and I had to photocopy my invoices and receipts from my business, and the 2 caseworkers from OW, not even the ODSP section. So like the Wellesley location has their own computers, brand new computers they can use to access services. A lot of people just go there and use like for emails and things like that. But as I'm using their computer that my caseworker told me to go use, the photocopier, they're hovering over me that I'm using too much paper. When really I should have just like tell them to leave me alone. My caseworker said I can use the computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
Anybody else want to jump in?
Sure. I'll jump in next very briefly. Yeah, it's legislated poverty. Just to kind of not even sugarcoat it, just call it what it is. Yeah, I mean, exactly, Minnie, like you nailed it exactly. Almost some of the words that I'm going to use now is these programs were designed purposely to fail the disabled people and people on income assistance. In my view, they should be 2 separate offices to handle the caseloads for whichever province that a person is in Canada. They may call it a different name, like OW, or in BC they call it employment income assistance. So yeah, there's different names, but it's still the same thing. It's either income assistance or welfare or whatever. And I guess I don't like they're using the word welfare, but they should have 2 separate offices. And again, like nobody.
And they did at one point in BC for a very short while. They had.
Yeah, and
Toronto was too. So Toronto used to have separate OW offices and separate ODSP offices, and then they merged when they built them with the work centers, like the one at Wellesley has the computer center and more bigger rooms, like a first floor and a second floor, and without, how the tables in the middle of the room and the caseworkers on the opposite side, some of them were prisons. So it's not like they didn't build new buildings. They used existing buildings, and if it was a prison, they had that weird table with the glass on it. It was set up to make you feel worse than you are, because if you're talking to a caseworker through a glass, you don't feel good about it. And then you're yelling through the glass, so you sound angrier. Like the environment was already toxic from the beginning, and they put assistants in a toxic environment.
Yeah, and having to prove why you need continued assistance going forward. You have to exhaust all avenues. Or do you qualify for EI? Can you prove that you qualified for EI? Can you submit the documentation from EI? So you go there, yeah, sorry, you don't qualify. Now you take it back to them. It's demeaning, and that's kind of my take on it. We'll dive more into that topic for sure.
Dan's got his hand up. You want to go ahead, Dan?
Yeah, I was just going to say, great to see you all again. Good to meet Minnie there. I actually know the office, the exact office that Minnie speaks of. During my times being homeless in the streets of Toronto, it's right at the corner of Jarvis and Wellesley there. I was on OW and ODSP for approximately 18 years total. But it was through different times. So I was on OW through the years of Mike Harris. And anybody that knows those years know the simple fact is there was no wraparound services, no programs. He cut them all in half, and there was absolutely nothing there for anybody. So when it comes to obligation or charity, I think, are we giving to provide for others? Absolutely. But I am a firm believer, and you guys know, and we'll talk later. I think we're obligated as humans to ensure that all that want to thrive have the tools to thrive. And I agree with Minnie 100% that office chaotic at times is an understatement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MJ, go ahead.
Well,
Thanks,
and the other problem we have, for a lot of us is, with the amount of stress that we deal with, it's like these people are, because I was, at one point I was going to deal with Work BC over, try and do something. And basically it's like, oh, somebody's feelings got hurt, so I shouldn't use their services anymore. And it's like, and I said, I'm sorry, but as an adult, that's your problem. Worry about your hurt feelings. Don't sit here and say that I got to go and worry about your hurt feelings. If you get hurt feelings, it's on you as an adult. And the problem I have is, it's like, with the stress that we, and anguish that we deal with, quite literally, most of the times of trying to access services, trying to deal with government contracted services that they put together, is they make it so that quite literally, it's like by the time you finally get to dealing with somebody, you've been run around, you've gone through hoops and hoops and hoops and hoops. And you just, by the time you're there, it's like the amount of time that you've wasted to get from point A to even point B. You haven't even gotten to Z,
Yeah.
It's like the amount of time you waste at these programs so they can justify their employment and their numbers, right? They're not actually even helping you. They're just going, oh, we just want to see if we, your assessment to see where you are. It's like, we know where we're at. We don't need more assessment,
Yeah.
We don't need to sit here and run through the ringer of having to go through more programs and more assessments and more things and more that before you even go and come to the point where, oh, I'm sorry, we can't help you. It's like, it's like, to me, it's like you're sitting here and you're trying to go and deal with the fact that you've got next to no money to deal with. Then when you try to reach out for help, if somebody's worried about nonsense, and it's like, to me, it's like, so it's like, no wonder why a lot of us just say, you know what, forget it. We'll just sit here and not even bother trying to go and do anything. Even when the workers go and say, oh, have you tried accessing Work BC? Yeah, I have. You know what? They're worried about hurt feelings. They're not worried about helping. They're worried about justifying their existence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it used to bug me about the, oh, sorry. I was just going to quickly say, Ellen, it used to bug me having to wait outside in the rain, for sometimes like a full hour or more outside the offices. And it's just like, I got better things to do than just sit out here in the rain for an hour or more, just because you don't want to like have me come into your office, and that's anyway.
Wow.
So go ahead, Ellen.
Well, there's we've always come face to face with ableism at almost every turn, and is nothing worse than going to see a worker because you have to, or you need to, only to be attacked in brute force by that same ableism, while they sit there going, We need to make this a safe space. If you're going to be angry and emotional, we're asking that you tone it down so our staff feel safe. Well, how about me feeling safe?
Yeah.
I mean, I try and stay away from the office as much as possible. If I can use my benefits to resolve an issue, whether it's reporting something or submitting something, I'll do it because as nice as my current worker is, that that slam in the face of ableism the moment you walk in is enough. I was like, I got enough ableism in the community. Thanks so much. I don't need to walk into a building full of ableism. I got a whole bag of ableism with your name on it, buddy. I'm like, thanks. Like,
Yeah.
it's like Dr. Evil. I got a whole bag of with your name on it. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but instead of it's ableism, and you're like, I'm like, I'm drowning on dry land in this stuff. Like I got enough. If I post something on, it's not been so bad lately on Twitter, but last year it was pretty bad, where I post something on Twitter and I'm getting all these bots and and so forth, like attacking me because I'm advocating for something. I'm like, holy smokes!
Yeah.
So, I'm tired of these workers who are making 80, 90 grand a year, suddenly throwing that blanket of ableism at me the moment I'm requesting something or I need to get information on something. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's my rant.
Yeah. Thanks, Ellen.
Okay, everybody's had a chance to go at this once. Does anybody
Now
have
it's
any
your
other?
turn, Neil.
Well, I kind of already did my thing. When I took, we put the word charity in there too, because I mean, we can talk about food banks too, how food banks are, I mean, they are a necessary thing, and some of them are good, but the fact that they exist means that, again, that our social
Is a
assistance
failure of the
system,
system.
yeah, our social assistance system is set up like a charity. It's proof that it's set up like a charity, that you have other systems like the food banks that are needing to pull up the slack of what the government's not wanting to do, right? So that's part of what I wanted to include the word obligation and charity in there. And when I came up with that statement, I was kind of poking a hole in the whole idea of the food banks, because you can see that food banks are important and some of them are good, but at the end of the day, it's they prop up the failure of what the government's doing or not doing, right?
It's a
Well, I
lack
mean,
of accountability.
yeah.
Examples, a lack of accountability on behalf of the people who say they're going to fund and support. It's like, well, it's that old saying for Ebenezer Scrooge: aren't there any workhouses? Aren't there any blah blah blah, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So food banks have just become a crutch that the government can say, "Hey, well, we're helping people." I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, food banks were never supposed to be a fixture in society. They were supposed to be as a temporary measure after the World War II. And I mean, there were soup kitchens, and then they introduced food banks. I always stand behind my view on it is you give people the resources and the tools and the financial services, and they can make the best decisions that's best for them going forward. But keeping rates well below, subpar below a standard of living, then it goes to show that people need food banks because, like you said, Neil, I mean, there are some good food banks, for sure. Like there's community kitchens, there's places that people go to, but
Community kitchens or churches, or that's great. Like
Yeah.
I'm on board for that, but
Yeah.
but to force people and say, you know, we're not going to give you enough for food, so therefore you must
Need to go to food banks, and you don't get all the nutritional
Yeah.
stuff from food
Yeah.
banks that people need
Yeah.
for their conditions. Also,
Minnie's got her hand up. You can go ahead.
go for it. Go for it, Minnie.
Yeah, so like food banks, it's a weird thing. So I went to 2 food banks, and both times I got food poisoning when I ended up in the hospital.
Mhm.
And then as you're in the hospital, because they're trying to figure out what's wrong with you, and then you see the doctor and they're telling you you need to increase your diet and exercise. It's always a thing when you go through CAMH emergency room and they do the assessment and they're trying to figure out how you're sleeping, how you're eating. And then the doctor does the blood work on whatever they're looking at, your iron and all your things in your blood.
Mhm.
And if your primary food is the food bank, they're not looking at a balanced diet of all your vitamins and minerals. Like my mom told me that I probably need to have digestive enzymes, just supplement,
Mhm.
because my medications cause a lot of stomach issues. And I'm like, okay, great. That's going to cost me like $15 a month just to get the pills.
Yeah.
Because
Wow.
and then to follow the instructions on the supplements, one of them says take 2 pills 3 times a day, and there's 180 pills, and you do the math, you're buying 2 of them every single time.
Oh my gosh.
And then vitamin D is not covered under OHIP. It's actually $50 or $60 to do the vitamin D test in your lab work, unless your doctor magically just checks the box, already covered under insurance.
Mm.
And then the prescription for vitamin D is like $16 for the 8 weeks, 9 weeks of 1 pill a week. And then you do your blood work again. And the doctor's like, your vitamin D is still low. You still need a higher prescription. That's not covered under ODSP. It's not covered under Ontario Healthcare. You literally have to apply for the exceptional access program to get that covered. And it's just your basic, my body has these irons and minerals that need supplementing because my diet, I can't afford my diet on a regular daily basis.
Mhm.
That everyone's, and they know it affects your weight gain, your heart, everything.
Oh yeah.
I'll go to the food bank and it's always processed food that has expiry dates. Like I'm literally now trying to use the canned soup because it expires this year. And the only way to make it edible, I have to add in a cup of cooked rice on top of it to make it
Yeah.
edible. And I really, there's not even food in it. Like the beef one has like 3 pieces of beef. What are you supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like I'm
Right.
I'm actually better off to learn to cook with the whole chicken, make my vegetables actually cook. But then if you don't know how to cook and don't know have the actual pots and pans to do it properly, you're not even cooking your food properly because you don't have the utensils and the proper kitchen to cook your stuff properly. And with housing, the situation with housing, not everyone has a proper kitchen with running water in Canada, which makes
Yeah.
no sense.
That's another barrier. Huge barrier.
We're trying to say have
Yeah.
housing, but some of the housing don't even have a full kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I looked at
All
three
the water now belongs to Nestle.
Yeah.
I looked
No,
I
no,
looked
it's
at
older.
3
And they're doing-
bachelors and sorry.
Sorry, MJ, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is one of the things that I've really realized about this whole welfare, disability, homelessness issue is it has actually become an industry to keep people in this predicament of being in disabled, welfare, homelessness. It's to keep the perpetual cycle going, so all of these people can have their large paying jobs and making $60,000-$80,000 a year at the top, while everyone else might volunteer at this organization, but they're getting a great paycheck. And this is the problem that we see is all of these organizations are designed to keep the perpetual motion machine going and not actually solve the problem. I mean, and this is why, when I was already doing my calculations on what it would be for, like, for example, for your universally available basic income, I started off at $2,000. Okay. I started at $2,000 and I started doing the real math and I started to figure out what the real math is. And it's about $4,000 per person in this day and age. It's not and that's to be able to go and have a roof over your head, buy groceries, that are actually good groceries that aren't about to expire, right?
Mhm.
And all of this stuff, it's like people are forced to go and buy meat that's within 3 days of expiring. Then they have to freeze it. Then they only cook portions at a time, so
Yeah.
they can go and have actual meat. It's absolutely nuts how this system has been designed to keep this poverty going in such a way that it actually causes more harm than good. And the real problem I find is when you bring these up to politicians, all you get is just nothing but perfunctory lip service all over again, saying, oh yeah, we're looking at the problem, we're going to solve the problem, we'll get to it, it's on our agenda, and it's like and it's a continuous slap in the face, to people that are disabled, that are trying to get their life going, or have been hurt at work and trying to go and reset after it, not being able to work in that same job again, and partially disabled. This is the problem: is they make it so difficult for you to go move ahead that they put more barriers in the way of you being able to have achievement in your life and not being on the system. So you're stuck sitting here having to go and play all of their games, and then you end up going and fighting with them, and then they go, oh, well, if you don't do this, don't do that, we're going to cut you off. And they do this, so that even adds more stress to people's lives of this threat of being made homeless.
Well, your comment, MJ, actually leads really well into the next statement,
Thanks,
which
MJ.
is 7, the seventh statement. Political solutions to disability need to be more nuanced. So instead of MJ taking this one right away, though, we'll see if anybody else wants to jump in. Political solutions to disability need to be more nuanced. That's the next statement. Anybody want to take a stab at that one?
Yeah,
So
sure.
I don't quite know what nuanced means, but say it again, political statements.
Sorry, political solutions to disability needs to be more nuanced.
Yeah, so
You substitute a different word, because I'm a bit foggy on nuance too.
I can here. I'll actually pull up the definition for nuance. I know what it means, but I'll give you the proper
customize. Use the word
okay,
customize.
so to touch on it before I
customized. Sure,
move-
customized is good. Yeah,
Customize?
that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Dan.
And me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so to touch on it, first off, just very quickly, when it comes to food banks, I agree with what everybody said. Minnie's exactly right. Nutritional value is 0 next to nil, because everybody has different needs, so we got to take that into consideration. And what MJ said is correct too, because I've been saying it for decades. It's all a fucking business. I have a problem here, especially in the city of Toronto, and many might know about this, as others will too. When our food bank guy, the guy that takes care of the Daily Bread food bank, is third on the sunshine list, making $350,000 a year, that's a problem to me, right? When it comes to the political side of disabilities and such, there's not a politician in the fucking world, other than a few that have had disabilities, that are going to give you any viable solutions to any of this. It has to be either lived experience at the table, or the lived experience of everybody giving the solutions at the table to come up with them. Because come on, man, Pierre Poilievre, Justin Trudeau, whatever, they're going to come up with the solution to the CDB or something else without our help. They're going to come up with a UBI without MJ or anybody else's help. It's not going to happen like that, right? So yeah, politically, the two words political and disabilities just aren't jiving together right now, because it's a proven fact that our premier in Ontario don't give two shits about anybody that's on disability or that has any form of disability whatsoever. And we're on our own. So we got to come up with the solutions, and these tables are doing it great. Like I don't know about UBI. How am I going to come up with it without hearing about information from MJ? You know what I'm saying? So working together and yada, yada, that's the only way to get it done.
Nuanced, by the way, I looked it up. It just is another word for subtleties, more subtlety. Yeah, go ahead, Brent. Go ahead, Brent.
I'll just quickly summarize it too. My view on it is it comes down to political choice, right? So it doesn't matter who's in power; it's their choice on how they dictate what rates should be, what policies should be. And you're right. You're bang on, Dan, because on that is it comes down to lived experience for persons with disabilities in Canada. or anybody on low income, anybody living in precarious housing, whatever it may be, if they're accessing food banks, it comes down to autonomy. That person making choices for themselves at the table. It comes down to the autonomy of themselves, them making the choices, not government. Like, we tell the government what we want, and if they're not listening to us, it really means, and then there's a problem. There's a problem, and a huge systemic problem in the system, where they need to be listening to lived experience stories, just like what we're doing when we have guests on, when we're sitting on a panel, we're talking about breaking down a lot of these issues and these statements, and we're talking about it in our views. And I encourage people to reach out to your local representatives and let them know, like, you have a voice. Your voice needs to be heard at the table. When they design these programs and services, people's voices need to be heard in part of the consultation process. And because, yeah, like, they can implement a CDB, who knows when, kick the can down the road, let's leave it to another government to deal with, making decisions that they feel is best for us or anybody else. No, like, people with lived experience need to be at the table. And yeah, like, I'll keep banging that horse down the road. I'll keep kicking that can, but I'm going to catch that can, and each of us are going to catch it. So that's my view. That's my rant.
MJ, go ahead.
Well, political solutions. It's, I mean, you know where I'm standing, and I've talked about it multiple times on the program. And I believe that giving us the independent choice at the level of saying, here's the money, there's a group insurance plan. You can join in the group insurance plan. There's 3 tiers. You can go for the full one. It'll cost you whatever a month, and giving us the choice to go and pick where we go, instead of having to constantly ask permission at every turn to say, oh, I need to go and get this done. Because in BC, I mean, I'm dealing with going and replacing my CPAP machine, for example, right? And I got to go through rings and hoops just to go and get that done from the government. It's absolutely nuts how much nonsense they've created to go and solve these problems. So it's like a medical issue. Oh, you need, Minnie was saying, she's like, she needs vitamins. And it's like, they don't cover vitamins, but if she had $4,000 a month, she'd be able to maybe afford these vitamins and not have to go and run through hoops and ask for permission to go and get more funding and more money, more this, and have to go to doctors to go and show tests and justify all of this nonsense, where it's like these government bureaucrats really don't give a crap. They'll just go, well, whatever, we'll just deny you because we've got a quota, right?
Can I pretty please be more healthy?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we're sitting here, and our health keeps going down. And for many people, it's like, well, we have to, out there, they're choosing between, feeding their kids or having a meal, they choose, or they're going and dividing it even smaller so they can go and have enough for tomorrow because they don't have enough. And this is what they've done, is creating this perpetual motion of nonsense that goes and keeps us straddling between, being homeless, not eating, in dire stressful desperation, and causing us more health problems because of this stress. So I'm gonna land, I'm gonna stop there, and I'll let Minnie jump on here.
Yeah, we have Minnie. Go ahead, Minnie.
So I thought I had a topic in the beginning, so the political and the consultations, because when Canada was changing the prostitution laws, they said they want to consult with sex workers. Then the abolishment sex workers, we got into a fist fight. So the level of, and what I learned with abolishment of sex work people that want to eradicate it completely, like it doesn't exist, which is stupid because it's going to exist no matter what you do. They hold on to their trauma. So when they go into political environments and they're doing the consultations, they bring their personal agenda in that room. It's not like they're trying to make something good for everybody involved. They're only doing it for the churches with billions of dollars. I'm going to play victim until the end of time. Like, there's a certain demographic of people that are controlling the laws that are happening in our country that affect everybody with sex work and disability, it's a huge thing. It's a huge survival thing. Like some people are doing sex work because it's the only way they can supplement their disability income. It's the only way they can go to school. It's like, and it's also the ableism. There's a certain demographic of sex workers that are making a lot of money where they've walked away from disability, or there's that batch who magically find a way to win the lottery every time. Like I had one person email me on the weekend that he won $250,000 from one scratch ticket for his son, and he's on ODSP. And I was like, don't tell ODSP anything first. Contact the lawyer, then contact a financial planner. But then because he's making a decision out of fear, he's going to tell the caseworker, they're going to screw up his file and cut him off because the amount of money that he has, instead of giving him time to use it to buy exempt assets, whether it's a registered disability savings plan, maybe he can buy a house, maybe he can move from his location, maybe his son with the disability can go to school. There's so many things that he could do to move his life forward if the caseworker gives him time to do it and not rush him off the system. So even if you make enough money to get ahead, depending on what caseworker you have at that time, or depending if you contact the lawyer first, then disability changes everything. So it's a constant. And then with my health issues, like I gained a lot of weight, I need a breast reduction. OHIP covered a portion, but the surgeon said it's $15,000. Then my doctor's like, oh, that's too expensive. You should shop around for a cheaper quote. I need a doctor who's going to operate on me because I have a health condition. On top of meeting the criteria for surgery of losing weight, maintaining the weight, and then bras. They're ridiculously expensive. Either they're $50 or they're $500 for a bra that lasts 3 months if you're lucky and don't gain weight. A problem that male bodies are not going to have unless they're transgender. Like the level of nuance and people with the disabilities, and if they have a gender identity on top of their disability, changing their gender costs money that doesn't get covered in the system at all. It's a giant thing. If we want people to live their best lives or live their best healthy lives, like there's a Financial Resilience Institute of basically white financial people making studies of people that are trying to be financially resilient that have not a single person on that our team picture looks like somebody that looks homeless or was homeless. Like they have this polished, I'm wearing my business suit. Like it's pure fraud. It's pure because if you look at Prosper Canada, there's people that work there for this charity, and then look at the hiring page or what they're looking to hire people, it is pure bullshit. It is pure bullshit of these organizations that claim they're helping low-income families, and they're corporate. They're fully corporate. They're insurance. They're tied to insurance companies. They're tied to billion-dollar companies. And they think they're helping us. And because if they help one person, that's their testimonial. That's it.
Ellen, go ahead, Ellen.
I think there is so much gatekeeping out there that I don't even know where to begin. Is it at the ODSP level? Is it at the social service level? Is it at the politicians level? Is it at the corporate level? Like they're just like, oh, you don't belong here. Go to that office, or you're not on the right phone 1-800 number to get this help. You need to call that number. It's like it becomes this automatically. It's not my problem. Go find help somewhere else, and you get trapped in this. And when you don't even have a phone, whether it's a pay as you go or a plan, and you're left with going to a resource center where the phone time is limited or whatever. Like it's the whole system is so gatekeeping so that those who are making the real income don't have to take accountability at all. It is so frustrating. It's like we don't like that you're poor, but we're not going to do a damn thing to make it different at all. And I'm not saying that from a woe is me perspective. It's just a reality that there's just so much gatekeeping that's being put in place. And I'm not just talking whether you're disabled or not. It's just our whole system is a platform of gatekeeping. It's
Yeah.
like it reminds me of invisible borders. That where country where if you were in Russia and you wanted to go to Ukraine, you had to show your paperwork and you had to show a border keeper. Except that border keeper is just a policy. It's not a person. It's now just some policy. It's now some regulation, and you've got to try and navigate it. But I'm going like 80% of it is just a bullshit anyway.
Yeah.
And that money could be actually going to people instead of being used to keep people down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the reason we came up with that statement again is about the nuance of disability is, I mean, we've talked before too of like, you know, that BC used to have a separate ministry, you know, and
Ontario too.
that
Ontario.
is what I mean by nuance. But now you have things like everybody belongs in the same shit pile. It's like, you know, so they're not, you know, government and ministries don't kind of they're not respecting the autonomy of a person. Like that's not that should be kind of front and center. Like let's treat this person like a person, but instead they're like everybody's treated like a file, and it's like, well, you know, disability is really no better than welfare. It's just basically 1 and 1A, right? That's basically all it is 1 and 1A, and there's no real fine I can't even say delineation between the two, right? It's just like, well, it's just like this is shit one, this is shit two.
Yeah, it's like one policy, and that the government has created magically, like a pink unicorn, and then they say, well, we'll cover everybody, right? So it doesn't matter who it is, but that's why they should have separate offices and treat people with dignity and respect, and give them the tools to make decisions for themselves. Like the discussion was mentioned, like, yeah, hey, permission to leave the province. You know, hey, can I leave the province for, you know, I mean, as long as you are within the country, you should be able to go to and from whatever province you want, as long as you want, without permission.
That should be very easy to do.
Yeah, without the fear of being cut off. Like, I mean, really? Like, yeah, that's
well, even Brent, even if you go to a funeral in like the province over, or even within the same province, if you're not under your roof for X amount of days, like let's say you got to be away 10 days because it's 3 days of travel there and back, and then the rest of it you're spending with the family of the funeral or the event itself. If you're 10 days out, like you will be deducted 10 days into the next month.
That's terrible.
Those days you're not under your roof. Like these guys, like these premiers like Doug Ford, have made it so impossible to it's so punitive just to breathe.
Yeah, go ahead, Minnie.
It was 2006 when my grandmother died. The funeral was in Jamaica. I was there for 2 weeks. I wasn't thinking, oh, go ask the caseworker for permission. My family wanted me there. I'm trying to deal with trauma in that country. I'm trying to figure out where I can stay, where I feel the safest. It was a nightmare. And then when I came back, luckily my mom kept the boarding pass. The only thing they didn't ask for was a death certificate of my grandmother. Like the level of they want to keep tabs on you.
It's like a level of distrust, right?
And then my business is based in the United States. And when they do a conference and I'm missing out on training, I'm missing out on advancement, I'm missing on the ability to making more income because I have to tell a disability, oh, I need to travel for business, to hopefully make an income that they're going to question if it's actually towards my business or not. Like they made a separate policy in self-employment and ODSP. If you travel for business, they need to show direct receipts that you made a profit or a loss from the travel before they recognize the expenses you paid for the travel. That's not in the CRA. CRA says if you're going to travel for business conferences, you're going to claim 2 of them for the year. That is it. You would think ODSP would just copy that rule, copy that tax law, but they're not even copying the exact same tax law to make it easier. They make it double. I have to think twice as much being self-employed and being on ODSP that I don't have to do with the CRA at all.
Because there's so much red tape, bureaucracy.
And I can bet you a buck that those workers that go to
And they don't
conferences.
understand it. It's not like the worker actually understands all my business expenses or my receipts. If I go to Cabo for a conference, they're going to wonder, why are you in Cabo? Not that I'm there to actually learn anything. And they're going to be like, oh, you have to record your conference so we prove that you're there. I don't do that because they're stupid. The way that my conference could be anywhere in the world because I'm working with big $1 million companies in the entertainment industry that I've been in since 2003, that the only reason I lost my status, recognition, and awards is because I got sick. That's the only, I would be a millionaire by now if I did not have my disability. That is where my upset. That is where I hate the government. That is where I hate the fact that I had to prove to them and go through employment supports and make another business plan for a business I was already running. I was already running the business and they're like, oh, prove it to me that you're confident in running your business. They don't understand. I'm talking to a 22-year-old caseworker right now who doesn't understand anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is a 20-year-old that barely came out of college that doesn't understand a word of what I'm doing in my business.
It's time for them to update their scripts, I guess.
MJ, do you want to pipe in?
Right. You know, I mean, and this is where, I'm trying not to yell at the screen here. It's just,
I know, frustration, but it just let her.
it's, I mean, trying to keep a little bit of humor, in all of this is getting very difficult, really.
It is.
And, this is why, to me, I like, when I started looking at all of this stuff and looking at UBI, and it's like I looked at the website for another competing group, UBI Works, and they want to run it exactly like unemployment, right? Where you got to report your income, and the more income you earn, the less money you get from the government. So it's like, you just want to duplicate a current system and and have people run through more hoops. I mean, this is the type of thinking that's being offered to our government for ideas and solutions. And I'm sorry, but when I see these ideas and solutions that are designed to add more paperwork, more government workers, more nonsense, and more hoops that people have to jump through, it gets to this point where it's like, honestly, the idea to me is like, here's the money, take it or leave it. If you want to go and buy some blow and put it up your nose for your $4,000 a month, fine and dandy. And if you want to get your life together, or if you need to buy a wheelchair, you need to save up to buy a motorized scooter, or whatever it is, or you need to go and buy $250 worth of vitamins a month and all the rest of this stuff, you'd be able to do this without ever having to ask permission, to ever have to fight with these people, without having to go and say, Warden, can I leave the province for 7 days to go to a funeral? I mean, the idea is, it's like, let's stop trying to find ways and reasons to harass and abuse people and to sit there and make them so they get to the point where it's like, what's the point? This is why you got the government offering MAID to people that are disabled now. This is what they want to push is, oh, your life's not worth living, you're disabled, you might as well just go and cancel it. It's the level of insanity and abusive behavior from our own government towards people, to devalue people that are disabled or have a mental health disorder or have some form of disability, is gotten so disgusting and out of hand. It's I really can't find the words to say without being verbally abusive to and have a verbally outrageous response.
I think MJ, one of the reasons that there are so many people opposed to the UBIs and stuff is they're looking down the barrel of not having a job, and that $80,000 a year they're making for basically pushing some documents around on the computer screen just terrifies them to the core.
Mhm.
So
Right.
they'll do anything to gatekeep, anything.
Well, right, and you know, and I've already calculated the about 2 million government employees across the nation that would be out of a job with the program that I offer. And it's not personal. Well, it is personal for me, but it's not,
Yeah,
you know, you know, I mean, I've talked about that before. It's like, you know, it's like you guys have gotten in the way of giving people the progress. It's like, you know, unemployment. Oh, you were fired or you quit. I'm sorry. You've paid in for the last 3 years, but you don't qualify. It's like, you know, it's like the gatekeeping on that. It's like, if it's insurance, then it should be paid as insurance. You know, you're insured, you got this, move forward. Okay, take the money. But no, they've made all of this gatekeeping to the point of where it's like they're deliberately trying to go and put people into a state of homelessness, fear, uncertainty, doubt, and panic, and to the point of where they give up, right? And this is why we have so many homeless people out on the street, is because these gatekeepers sit there and say, oh, if you don't comply by this date, we're going to cut you off. And you're already dealing with a person with a serious mental health disorder. A lot of these people have schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and other disorders out there that are very complex and nuanced to go and understand, to work with these people, right? And they don't care. They don't simply care. I have a quota. I have to do my job. You know, this is just the way it is, you know, and, you know, the fact that they, you know, the provinces are now going and demanding that we put a halt on this idea of expanding MAID is a good thing in a way, because, you know, you see a lot of these people, you know, that they make destitute like us, looking at that as a way out because they just can't take this anymore. We are in a very sad state of affairs in this nation, extremely sad.
Yeah,
And
you're
totally.
sorry, MJ, you're talking about MAID, and we actually want so bad to bring Neil Belanger from BC Ann's on the show, because he seems to have his ear to the ground about that kind of stuff. And what I like about, I mean, I'm not even on Twitter anymore, but I still see his tweets, even though I'm not on Twitter. And what I like about what he puts out there is it's not inflammatory stuff. Like it's not stuff that's clickbait. You know, he just says something that's very matter of fact about MAID. He just puts it out there and lets it sit there, and that's why I really want to get him on to talk about, because he seems to kind of know what's going on with all that, and I'd really like to have him on the show soon.
Oh, absolutely. You know, because it's a very important, you know, topic that needs to be dived into from Neil Belanger. Yeah, I follow everything that is going on with it. You know, seeing what he's posting out. I mean, there's this pushback, obviously, from the government now realizing, we screwed up. Oh, and people are actually dying. Really? Well, you know, it's a policy choice again, right? That should never have come down that rabbit hole, right? It should never. People who are suffering in their lives for no fault of their own, when it comes down to like tools or the financial resources and the tools, people with disabilities should be given the resources that they need to help them with their you know, with their life. I'm not saying that people should not have the right. I mean, and you know, again, I mean, people should have the right to, I guess, whatever decision they want to make. But if it's because it comes down to that they're lacking the financial resources, putting a roof over their head, giving them the financial security, giving them the food resources that they need, rather than going to a food bank and all the above. And I think the government's now realized, ooh. But I don't hear any. I hear not even hear crickets regarding the CDB at all. I think that it's going to be a political little carrot trick of saying, well, we have your best interest, vote for us because hey, we're going to get this through. No, I'm sorry. Like it's already the barn. People have already left the barn already. Like the cattle's out there. I just give everybody. I don't know what version of a basic income it needs to be, but I think something like something solid ground going forward is going to help people with that, because right now it's just yeah, it's not working. And I think that it's a whole systemic issue, and that's why I want to get Neil on. He can dive right into all this stuff.
I'm here.
Yeah, exactly.
No, the other Neil, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the shovel. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm gonna dive over to you there, Dan.
Go ahead, Dan. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say very quickly. First, I understand about the gatekeeper talk and homelessness and stuff, but that's not what causes homelessness. What causes homelessness is mental health issues, addictions. Do they perpetuate it? Do they push it on, kick the can down the road? Absolutely. But more importantly, though, just in case you never heard, because I don't know if you guys have heard or not, MAID is actually this morning announced on the news that March deadline for the MAID with regards to people with mental health issues has been called off.
Yeah.
They didn't make the deadlines in time, so it's going to be a conversation that continues, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's actually been called off, and it was announced this morning on the news. So
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks
I knew
for
that actually. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, they know they're not. They know that we walked into a complete shit show, and it's. I mean, MAID was giving for the last 2 years. MAID has been giving me serious PTSD, where I'm like, I'm having nightmares of extreme outcomes. You know, as far as which I know will never happen. It's just that this being a creative person, there's a constant film rolling in my head, no matter what I do to offset it. So, you know, maybe I've seen too many of those Adjustment Bureau type movies where people are told, hey, if you come into the new city, we'll set you up in an apartment where you're really being sent down on a conveyor belt. So, I've probably seen one too many of those, but the whole idea of MAID and eugenics and being and extended into the mental health really, I think it's a fear tactic that's been used for people who do have mental health and PTSD already. Let's make them afraid of what could come if they're not voted in. And someone told me that a tool to get people to comply in a certain way is much easier to do with fear than it is to do with encouragement.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they paused the MAID to look at it deeper, because I think it needs to be. I think there needs to be an aid implemented before there's a MAID. I mean, the Netherlands, they've been offering MAID in mental health for years, but it's a last resort because they actually have aid. Like, hey, we can make your life better, but if you still want to off, you know, we can do that too. But they're saying like, hey, we can subsidize your rent. We can do X, Y, and Z to make sure that you're eating and you have a roof over your head before you opt for the final transition. And we need to do that in Canada desperately, because it's a slippery slope if we don't. It is just it's a slope that in 10 years from now we're going to be deeply regretting if it's implemented without real checks and balances.
Yeah, not providing the non-killing option is egg on the face of the government, right?
Well, because there's a big organization, Neil from BCNs had posted. Of course, there's pushback from a big organization. It's Dying with Dignity, and of course they're pushing back against it right now. It's probably foaming at the mouth, right? Because the government's now put an indefinite pause on it, and so now they're going to push back their agenda and saying the reasons why they want it pushed forward, right? I can see that pushback, and you know, hopefully the government actually says, no, we're taking a stance. This is what we're doing. And government, if you're listening to this, you need to take that stance. Listen to.
I think I think the Liberals are trying to cover their ass too by pausing it, because in 10 years, if they went ahead with it as they were planning to, it looking back 10 years from now, they could be seen as as the party that followed the Nazis in World War
Mm.
II. And I'm not saying they did or they had,
No,
but
no, no.
the
I agree.
perception be like, we're never like, it's like with the NDP, never, no more. Was it uh Ray? Well, who's the politician? No more Ray days, right? I can't remember
Bob
his
Ray.
Bob
Bob Ray?
Ray,
Bob
right?
Ray, yeah.
And it's put such a stigma on the NDP, and
Mm.
I think that the Liberals are not really pausing made out of empathy, but they're doing it to cover their own ass because they don't want to be looked back as the party that were like the Nazis in World War II.
Mhm.
Well, every Canadian, their life matters. I mean, the value of their life. I mean, it matters, and you give them the resources, the tools. I mean, everything that every single person in the country has a right. I mean, it's just a human right, and I'm not going to dive in about human rights stuff and all that stuff, but I mean, is there's a fundamental line here, and the government's crossing that line saying, well, no, we don't want to give you the housing, we don't want to give you the financial resources, but yeah, I'm sorry that you're suffering. That's why, I mean, they tried going down that slippery slope. Now I don't know if they, maybe they were pushed by another organization that told them to do that, but obviously now I'm glad, thank you for putting a pause on this, but we need to do an indefinite pause on it. And now, then, exactly what you said, Ellen, it's like in other countries, maybe they have options. Okay, now if that's up to that person, but give them the tools and resources first, then go from that point on and look at it. But you need to listen to about lived experience.
Well,
This
this
basic, yeah,
this pause is nothing more than a political. We're covering
posture.
our ass, so in 10 years from now, we can't be accused of being
Mm-hmm.
war crime Nazi um, party. Blah blah blah. Now, this is a political ass covering decision
Mm-hmm.
deposit. It's not an empathetic one. They're they're being put to the fire, and they've been told on certain terms until you have more checks and balances, we're not going there.
We'll
That's
give
I think anyway.
we'll give
Well,
MJ
yeah, go
sorry.
ahead.
We'll give MJ the last kick
Yeah.
at the can, and then maybe we'll go on to the next statement.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, let's talk about perfunctory lip service here, for example. Our legal rights. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the security of the person, the right not to be deprived, except thereof, in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice. That's the best lip service that they give to people with disability. Because life, liberty, and the security of the person means a lot of things other than just going and having the right not to be shot at or being attacked or whatever. That security of the person and life and liberty means a lot of things, right? And it's a very large avenue of discussion, which we don't have time for at the moment. But the point being simply is they're not, they don't even follow the own rules that they've set up when it comes to this nation. They've make it so it's like, well, you have the right to life, but you can starve and live on the streets, right? And that doesn't give you the security of the person. And that's the problem. And you don't end up with liberties either, because you have no liberties when you're trying to go and survive being out on the street. I've never been homeless. I've never been homeless. But I've listened to Dan talk about it, and it's like, and I've talked to homeless people, and they, I've listened to them talk about how much of a struggle their life is from day to day. And
Well, they're fined and
fined, harassed,
harassed.
threatened, and all the rest of this stuff. Oh, because they're homeless. And so, how is it that our government goes and says this one thing, but just gives us the lip service? And this is the real problem that we have: is our own government has been giving us nothing but lip service for a very, very long time.
You know what's scary, MJ, is you don't even have to be homeless. You can be waiting on a platform in a certain city waiting for the second train because your friend is coming in on that train, or you have to wait for that particular train because it's going to an additional city. And a, if a law enforcement officer thinks you're loitering, you can get fined. I mean, you don't even have to be homeless. We're putting these our province and our country in general, our provinces are putting in these impunitive, no loitering policies where you can be literally fined. It's like they're literally just going to go. We're going to.
Right.
We're
So
going to.
let's
We're
find
going
the
to find
poor
a way
people.
to. We're going to find a way to bully you by using a policy to make you can comply. So you're
Wow.
not just hanging around and looking like a nuisance in an ideal society. It's just such a joke.
Anyways, let's get to the next question here because I'm sure it's going to be good.
Yeah. This one is deceptively simple. Uh, excuse me. Oh, what's the?
Oh,
Just 1 second.
yeah, no problem. Yeah. So while we wait for Neil to come back, just kind of a recap. Like there was a talk show this morning on a local radio station. Of course, MJ, yeah, you would know. I mean, that's because you're in BC, but it's a local radio station, CKNW. Okay, and they were talking about homelessness in the city of Nanaimo. They have a huge homeless problem that's happening there, and the local mayor, was on, and he used to be a former MLA for actually the governing party in British Columbia, the NDP, and he's very vocal. I mean, and rightfully so, right? He's holding the government to account. They made an announcement, and of course, Dan, you'll be wanting to really tune into this one, and Minnie is he made a very valid point of saying that we got a huge problem because of course, the premier showed up with an announcement saying they're going to be providing 100 new modular housing to house the homeless people. Now, there's at least, he said, 900 to 1,000 people right now that are homeless. And he said, so the host said, well, I mean, what do you think on that, Leonard? And he says, well, you know what? I don't go with numbers. I don't go with numbers. Like that's just, whatever. They're going to throw 100 out there. Yeah, that's going to help. That's going to help house 100 of them. But what about the rest? Like there's now at least 1,000. I mean, that's what they can count. That's what the city can count how many are homeless. I was talking to Sonia earlier about this same topic, and that number is way higher. That's the only number that they can actually count by doing the stats. He said there, he said, get on with it, right? He's holding the current government accountable, saying, get on with it. People in the community are very upset because the province wants to just plunk these modular housing down in an area that people in the community don't feel comfortable with. And I mean, I'm not saying don't put
the NIMBY
house the
effect.
homeless,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I'm saying yes, great, that's great, but maybe consult with the community and have saying, okay, like where should we put this housing that's going to make it kind of an even playing field? You can't make everybody happy, and I know that, in society, but maybe come to a common ground of saying, okay, maybe we put this housing in a central area where now they're going to be supervised, monitored to a point where they're getting that the health care that they need temporary while they figure out a permanent solution for them. In my view, I think permanent housing is the better solution. It always has been. It's like putting a Band-Aid over the problem, right? They have a serious problem. But anyway, the theme of it, just to get back to summarize this, is that there's more, obviously, there's a huge amount of work that has to be done. But he said this has been a problem for like 30, 40 years. Like this didn't just happen overnight.
Yeah.
This has been an ongoing problem with successive governments. Now it's come to a boiling point of it's going to continue. Like it's getting worse, and there's no magic solution. I'd say, you give people the financial resources and the tools and get them the help that they need. And because he was focusing about mental health, He said a lot of these individuals that they're dealing with right now in the city of Nanaimo, just for instance, they have a huge substance abuse issues that are going on. And he said some of them, if you offer them housing, they probably won't take it. They don't know, like you can't voluntarily say like, yeah, we're gonna get you the help. You're gonna come with me. He said that they won't like, and he said so it comes where the question was is that voluntarily make them go or force them to go. And he stands with the one where some of them, unfortunately, he said they just need that to be put somewhere because they're actually safety for themselves and for the community. I don't know. I mean, that's his view on it. I don't know the solution. Maybe I'll get Dan. I'm just gonna quickly
Well, Dan's off right now.
Oh, okay.
Dan
No, just
left.
when if you
We
Dan
have MJ again with us.
MJ, actually, I'll get your view on that quick topic before we jump to the next statement thing.
Well, I was jumping ahead to take a look at what they were. So,
Yeah.
you know, we used to have facilities for people that required constant mental health supports where they couldn't go and take the medication or they wouldn't take the medication.
Mhm.
You know, we've had advancements in certain healthcare provisions and technologies. Like, for example, for people with schizophrenia, there is now a shot that lasts 3 months. Okay. This is a shot that should be used as the first line of defense, not giving people pills, because we all know that people with schizophrenia generally and other mental health disorders as well. I mean, let's not just pick on one, but a lot of people with mental health disorders go and take their pills and go, I feel good. I don't need them anymore. I'm cured. Right. Right. And this is a real problem that
It's not just like, it's not mental health. It's any prescription that you're supposed to take until finish or take until the doctor prescribes
Or take
something.
it with food. That's the worst when you're in poverty because I have to skip meals. Sorry.
I want to hear what Minnie had to say here.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry.
Yeah.
Let's
Go ahead.
try not to talk
My
over
bad.
each other.
It can happen with antibiotics. So like with strep throat, typically you get the amoxicillin
Yep.
and then like 7 days of pills, take 3 or 2 a day, depending on the schedule. But around day 3 or 4, you feel better. And then if you stop taking it, you just gave the virus a sample of the medication, the ability to reject the medication that you're taking, and then you have to finish the pills. And with my mom being a nurse, she used to do VON nursing where she'd go in people's houses. A lot of times she had patients that think they took the medication, but they weren't sure they took the medication. It's like, because if you're in a routine of taking your medication all the time, you like, I'll forget. If I don't take it at 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. when the alarm goes off, I have another alarm that says, did you take your pills? Like the reminder checklist alarm where you check the box and it goes away. It will say, I haven't checked that box since like, July. Or because I'm not doing the checks and balances. Like my Google Calendar has a task thing where it says you check the box and it's done. Like the level of, I have all these things to remind me to take my pills. And then I go check the little pill organizer and Sunday is still in the box. And I'm like, when did I miss Sunday? Or when did I miss Friday? Like it's a constant thing of reminding to take your pills over and over again. And the Shoppers Drug Mart blister packs that they have there,
Yes.
that weird paper has an aftertaste that absorbs in the pills. So my doctor thought, do the blister, and this is giant folder of your pills for every day of the week that you just punch out all your pills. They put your prescriptions, the blister packs for you. So if you're taking 6 pills, or like each pill has their own schedule, you don't remember. You literally don't, like you just don't remember all of them. Or you take them so much where you're just sick and tired of taking them. Like I'm taking the prescriptions, plus I'm taking supplements. Each supplement has a schedule. Yeah, you get fatigue. You totally get fatigue. They're like, so yes, shots would be better. But if you're afraid of needles, you're not going to go into it because you're afraid of needles.
Yeah.
So we have all the advancements, we have faster pills, we have all these extra things. But you have to agree. You have to be willing to go through treatment. You have to be willing to stick with treatment. And if your treatment is for the rest of your life, like for me with bipolar and multiple sclerosis, for the rest of my life, it's going to be stomach issues, hair loss, indigestion, can't have babies, but I have to take another pill so I can have babies just for the prescriptions that the government doesn't want to pay for all of them either. Like I remember with CAMH, they were giving me samples because OW wouldn't cover the prescription.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the doctor who was good at getting the samples from the drug reps, the sales reps, you weren't getting your prescription at all. So, and then if you're homeless and you have pills to take, you're not carrying them with you everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably would sell them because I learned that the quietapine and cocaine, it's a cue ball, a whole other drug by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
and
more you
that's
know.
it's following that routine of making sure you stick with that medication right through till it's supposed to be done. And in some cases, yeah, it's a lifelong medication in order to keep that person stable. Yeah, and it's I know it gets to a point where there's that fatigue of do I have to keep taking this medication? And is it like kind of just summarizing what you're saying, it's is it a shot? But yeah, people are scared of needles or keep taking the pills. Yeah, I don't know.
Like
Yeah,
the side, one of the, my hair fell out, like my pubic hair fell out. So my doctor's like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm like,
yeah.
I was told my hair on my head would fall out, not the hair on my body would fall out.
Hmm.
Because the medication is working, I still have to take it. And then I'm like, like the weight gain, all these other side effects that happen, like
Yeah,
seeing the cardiologist, just because the medication, okay, yes, it's working, but the side effects, they
yeah.
still, so your body may tolerate a certain side effect for a period of time, and then eventually your body's like, fuck you, I don't care about your side effect and your medication. I don't want to cooperate. Your body will actually just give up on the medication. That's why
Hmm.
people are changing medications and they end up being resistant of medications. It's a whole, like, yes, big pharma is making a lot of money of pumping out medications, having a certain percentage of people that agree to the medication, the way that they study the medication before they release it to the public.
Hmm.
It's exhausting because you're like you want to get better, you want to do the treatment,
Of course.
and then if you're in
When
the system,
when I was
take
having,
prescriptions,
yeah,
you're literally choosing take the prescription or just let your mind do whatever it does and hope you survive.
when I was having stomach issues a few years ago, I had a doctor that was told me to take these acid inhibitors or acid blockers, for my stomach. And
Right.
I thought, oh no, I don't know about that. So I started reading about it, and I mean, they're nasty because basically what they do is they shut down your stomach acid, and because your body is smart, your body says, oh, you're not producing any acid anymore, so I'll produce more, right? And this is
Right.
what your body does to counteract. And so what happens is people stay on those acid blockers for an extended period of time, you just end up getting higher and higher, more and more doses. And they said that if you stay on them for any length of time, you get screwed up totally. So I just did a quick Google search and I started reading the stuff and I said, no way am I touching that stuff. And I just changed my diet, and that's helped immensely, just changing my diet rather than relying on a pill.
Yeah, because like there's like you were actually on the phone there, Neil, just for a moment, but I was just diving into kind of a recapping like a radio segment I was listening to about the former mayor for the governing party in British Columbia for Nanaimo. And I was talking about way back when people listening to the podcast now are watching live. I mean, they'll hear the word Riverview, right? And it was how the former mayor, I mean, he's the mayor, but I mean the former MLA, he calls it the what did he call it? The people who flew over the cuckoo's nest, or Nurse Ratchet. He goes, how people would kind of relate that to how people were treated in that facility. He says going forward, yeah, I mean, he still believes. He said he'll still stand by that. he thinks that the people who really need that help, that are not going to be voluntarily wanting to get that help on the streets, like some of them, unfortunately, that they really do need the help. I mean, everybody's a human being. They do need the help in whatever case it is, to protect their well-being on the street, or public safety. Like, I mean, they're smashing into buildings. Like, they don't even know where they are or what they're doing. They're just smashing it. They're causing problems. I mean, they just obviously need some help, the care that they need, and the dignity and respect that they need. Now, is it making a new state-of-the-art facility? He still thinks that, yes, they need to be put into somewhere for care for themselves and for the public. I think province-wide, like each community, or maybe every so many communities, having different hubs around and having it set that way rather than just one place.
That Fraser view though is bad.
Yeah, I heard it was just, it was bad, but he
Well,
said for the one of the governing party way back when, the BC Liberals had shut it down. But of course, I'm not going to do the go there and start blaming previous governments. I think they all have to work together and find a good solution going forward. And he just blames it that they're just kind of taking way too long figuring this out, and people are suffering.
Let's try to move on to the next. There's probably more that could be said, unless you want to.
No, done with that topic. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say that we do have some comments in the chat that you might want to take.
I was quickly scanning them. You have Linda that was saying, I'm trying to get a diagnosis for ADHD so I can get medicine that works, but because it's addictive, they don't give prescriptions that easily. That's one comment. Another one from Just Me, I'm bipolar. I've been on every medication and they don't work. I've got ketamine treatment in the hospital, but it was only 6 sessions and now I'm home with no meds and it's very hard.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that's tough. I'm really sorry that you're going through that. It's maybe there's something that the doctors can maybe look at, as an alternative things that might work good for you. I don't know. I know some doctors, there are some really good doctors, and I had a doctor at a walk-in clinic one year, you guys, and it was just like, almost like one of those pencil pushers, right? Wanted to push out the meds, and I said, no, that guy said, I'll have a bad reaction to that. So I said, no, and so I went and saw another drop-in clinic and it worked good for me. And it was the same thing. Like, I was told, yeah, like this, I needed penicillin at the time, and you need to keep taking that until it's fully done with that prescription, right? Because it's, if you don't, like kind of what you were talking about, Minnie, it's, if you don't finish taking it, guess what? Yeah, it becomes a big problem. So yeah.
I'll say with the ADHD diagnosis, so the fastest way to get a diagnosis is through a private clinic. I ended up finding one in Toronto. And the one at CAMH, it's like 2 years I'm waiting for my diagnosis for that. So and depending on your executive functions, how you function throughout the day or just life in general, you may not need a diagnosis for every single thing. Because like, yes, you need diagnosis to access the disability benefits, like with the disability tax credit. Yes, it's a good idea to put every limiting condition I have so I get access to disability tax credit. But it just like, I don't want to be in the doctor's office for a half an hour or more just filling out all my conditions on the paper. Because it's every time you fill out a disability form, you're re-traumatizing all your disabilities, all your conditions, or all your prescriptions, or all your supplements. Where, yeah, CAMH not having my ADHD diagnosis right now, I mean, not paying the $500 for the executive function and assessment or the other ADHD, because there's private doctors that would do the diagnosis. There's private doctors that would go through treatment. Like, there's other treatment available in the private system, but it's a matter of, do you really need to know that answer, or can you go through therapy and learn other tools to function? Because every time you, like Tony Robbins was saying that over the 4 days I was there attending it, if you always identify your condition as mine, you attach it to your hip. It's never going anywhere, and it actually blocks you from moving forward for the other things that you want. So yeah, we need to get to a baseline. We need to have answers. We need to access the things that we need to access, but we need to live our best lives, whatever that is. As much as I want, like my physio starts in March, I really don't want to go there, but I will max out my sessions. I will do, but I'm paying down my credit card so I can buy insurance on my own and go to any clinic I want to. I don't want to be limited in the system that's only there for poor people, and then you have to wait your turn. And then as you're waiting your turn, you're pausing your life for things you want to accomplish. Like ODSP says, oh, I can't leave the country for longer than 30 days. Okay, what can I do in a 4-day cruise vacation and have a good time? They're not going to stop me from spending money that I need to spend to enjoy my life. Just that they're not going to stop me from maxing out my credit card for doing grocery delivery. So just certain things, I just know I don't need everything to be recorded and documented and evaluated and approved based on other people who are going to judge my lifestyle and my life and things I need. So yeah, like it's super hard to have a health condition and you need treatment and not getting the treatment. But the way that I went through therapy and cognitive behavior therapy and the 8-week trauma therapy at Women's College Hospital in Toronto, it was other things that supported my mental health so that I can function as like a fully developed adult. Like the way that we know there's child development stages from toddler to baby, and they know what milestones you would be achieving. I want to achieve those as an adult. So it's you kind of have to make a decision on your own of where you are, what you need. Do you really need the diagnosis? Do you really need to be on disability? Like someone in the Tony event, she's on ODSP making her application. She had an employer, and now she's going on ODSP. And I was like, do you really need to be on ODSP? That was the first question I asked her. Because once you're on it for the rest of your life. Once you get on certain government programs, they can go back and audit you whenever. Like that is what we're signing up to. And then people are saying it's the meeting. No, it's a system. People voted for the system. People voted for this system. It may not be you that voted for the system, but the collective society voted for the system.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Minnie.
Yeah. I was just gonna wrap up and say if people knew what they were voting for, maybe they wouldn't necessarily vote for it. But
yeah.
Let's go on to point number 8, and this is a very simplistic one, but it's accessibility isn't always accessible. Accessibility isn't always accessible. Go.
Okay.
Is that? Go ahead, MJ.
It's like I was saying earlier in the program, it's like we come with our baggage and our problems and our our issues, then we go to these programs to seek help, and it's like, oh, you hurt somebody's feelings, or you shouldn't have said this, you shouldn't have done this. It's like, I got my baggage, and you guys are not being accessible to go and worrying about my concerns. You worry about your own people's concerns. I came here for help, right? It's like I think Ellen was saying, or Dan before, it's like, oh, if you do this wrong, if they're gonna rag on you and they're gonna sit here and berate you because, oh, you don't comply with their little programs and the way they're thinking. Well, I'm dealing with my disability the best I can, and and my frustration is overflowing because every time I try to come and ask for help, somebody worries about something that's absolutely nonsensical, and it's like, so it's like it's like, yeah, I'd like to go and consider self-employment, but I got to go deal with Work BC. No, I can't deal with Work BC because they're worried about feelings. They're not worrying about facts. They're not worrying about helping. They're worried about, oh, you hurt somebody's feelings. And it's like, feelings get hurt. Move on. We're adults, and unfortunately, for a lot of us that are disabled, our fuse gets a little short with dealing with people that waste our time, because it's like, oh, we need you to sit in a chair for a couple hours to ask questions. Well, it hurts to sit in a chair for a couple hours answering your questions. It's like this could have been done where you sat on the phone and did this from the comfort of your office, and I could have been home in my chair with, my backrest to help me have support, and I
Mhm.
wouldn't have had any problems. But no, they make things difficult, and accessibility doesn't become, is not accessible because they make it extremely difficult to go and access these programs, or they make too many hoops and too much nonsense to get there. So people just say forget it and give up.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
that's that ableism, right? Within the
Oh, totally.
structure of a system that says there's no ableism.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
that's exactly it.
there's no ableism here.
Don't
Wait a
call it
minute.
ableism.
Yeah. And I mean, you want to go
And
ahead?
God forbid if you call them ableist.
Mhm.
Thanks on that, MJ. On that, did you want to continue on a little bit on that, MJ, or do you want to pass it over
He's
to?
he's off the screen now.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh,
if Ellen wants to jump in or
yeah.
Minnie,
Minnie,
either.
go first.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a weird thing, like how I learned after that, like I can't change my light bulbs in my apartment. If I climb a ladder, I get dizzy. My doctor said she could send the referral in for the ear, nose, and throat doctor because it might be a balance issue. So anytime a light bulb is out, that for the kitchen and bedroom,
Mhm.
I'm calling my super to do it. I mean, I did learn that legal aid said the building is supposed to accommodate people with a disability, but sometimes these light bulbs go out every single month.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know what's wrong. They changed out the wiring, they changed out the switch, they changed out different light bulbs. Like the level of getting access to things that I'm told I'm supposed to get access for, but if you don't like, they don't even advertise what you're supposed to be accessible for. Like the disability tax credit when it came out, I saw a flyer in a coffee shop and my dad told me it was a scam. And now I have the disability tax credit and the letter of statement of entitlement that the government gives you when you're catching up on carry forward room in the registered disability savings plan. One letter said if I deposit $5,000, the government will give me 10,500. When I brought it up to somebody else who's also on disability, they told me that letter was a scam. And it's a letter directly from the government, and when I log into CRA account, it says exactly I'm eligible for the disability tax credit. But because other people are not informed or not educated, they're blocking my access to things that I'm supposed to be accessing.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like that's the system we have. We literally have people who are fearful of the system or skeptical of the system that are blocking people from access, like doctors who don't fill out the forms, or doctors who've been your doctor since you were a kid who don't believe you're disabled,
Mhm.
but that they went to school for 7 years to say that they want to help people with health conditions. So like the person that was there asking me about applying for disability, and I'm asking her about a doctor, she's a doctor that doesn't want to fill out the form that's going to terminate her as a patient in June, where she needs to find a doctor. And I was like, look, you need to have a serious conversation with this doctor to ask them, do you really want to help me? Do you want me to access things that I need to better my life? Because they're the person that they legally have to fill out the form. I can't fill out the form. I can't tell the government what my condition is or what my limitations are. I cannot do it. Even though ODSP had a self-reporting page in the adjudicator application, everything else has to be signed and stamped by my doctor or by all the
Mhm.
healthcare providers listed on the page. If you don't have a doctor who believes in the health, like they go to help people, they go to heal people, they're in the industry of healing people, and they don't want to heal people.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
on top of, if you grow up with a family who doesn't believe you're disabled, or they think you're just lazy, or they think you're just not trying hard enough, or you think that you're just not being smart enough, or whatever the condition is, or your family setting you up not to access disability forms, you're not going to access it. If I needed extra tutoring or support in high school, my parents were not doing the things to make sure the school was giving me the tutoring and support I needed. So great. Like the disability accommodations that they said that every building was supposed to be disability accommodated by 2025. We are nowhere near that deadline.
Mhm.
Nowhere.
The government said we will make all these things accessible with more like easy access for people with a disability that are blind or deaf or wheelchair mobility, and they're not doing that. They're not like the level of, they only build one sidewalk near my building to be wider for wheelchairs. But most of them, no. If a wheelchair is coming at you, you're walking, the chances are they run over your foot. Like I
Wow.
literally have to stand a certain way that someone does not run over my foot on certain sidewalks.
Mm.
So like the
Uh,
accessible no, we're not doing it. We are not. We're doing like even the internet. The internet is not accessible for people that are hard of hearing or people that are deaf. Like even products that are built. If my microphone is giving trouble, I have no idea. It's not built to be accessible.
Mhm. Mhm.
I've even come across set of stairs with set of doors at the bottom, and it says handicap accessibility. And I'm looking at the photo, going, "There's something not adding up here." You got these two handicap stickers on the doors at the bottom of the stairs. I'm going, um, I may not be in a wheelchair, but if even if I had to go down those stairs, and some of them are like old institution stairs where like they had in high school where the step is not even that deep. It's a very shallow step in depth, but it's a very steep step on each step itself. And you're going, there's no way with someone with crutches would even be able to go down there if they had someone holding their arm. Like, so no, I totally echo what Mary's saying. We are so far behind the curve as far as accessibility, like
Yeah.
so far behind it.
See, and here's another thing: is building codes for accessibility. It's like, oh, we put an elevator in. Okay, well, if the elevator stops, guess what's happening? You're being carried down the stairs by firefighters, or you're just going to stay there and burn. Have a nice day. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it's it's like the way we've built society is if you're disabled or if you're not part of the contributing group of people, as it were, and you don't go to work, as it were, you're not considered in the aspects of generalized society and building of a building or building of a road or a sidewalk or whatever it is. It's just you're ignored because you don't contribute. That's what they really look at it from, as a financial position of what you contribute to society, or not, and not from what you could contribute if you had all of these abilities and the accessibility there to do so. They don't want to make the accessibility to be a real thing. And this is why we get nothing but lip service. This is why I really think that the preview for the line that before question period should say the following program is for the thinking impaired, because really this is what we're dealing with here in this political atmosphere is a lot of thinking impairment of people just running the program without actually thinking for themselves. It's really where we're at.
Thank you on that, MJ. And I'll basically give my quick little comment on that topic too. Yeah, I mean, pretty well just to summarize everything that you've mentioned, Minnie, on about accessibility regarding how industry in general, and what you just mentioned too, MJ, and Ellen. Yeah, like you guys have pretty well nailed exactly what I was just gonna say. And it's just industry in general. I mean, people say like, is it all government's fault? No, I think it's just every industry in general is just not kept up with it. It's like saying, well, if you have any kind of impairment, oh, then now, yeah, you're just not part of today's society. We don't want to deal with it because we don't know how to deal with it. Well, you have to listen to lived experience. Like, I mean, everyone's going to become disabled one way or another in their life. You're born with a disability. You will acquire more disabilities as you can become older. And what do? Just ignore, just not keeping up with making things accessible. Like, is it, everyone knows when I talk about transit, I just goes on to a rant, which I'm not going to do this segment here. But yeah, like, do we make transit more accessible? Like hell. I mean, oh, well, we made it accessible when we're running it. Well, okay, but are you running
I-
the actual, the service? No, like you're not.
Yeah,
And
or you're relegated to the short bus, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
They're-
was
they're-
in I was in Toronto and I was doing street photography. I'll be super quick here. I noticed this business guy, and I thought the first time he did it, it was just by fluke. But he was turning his umbrella to the side because on Bay Street, as you head towards Union, there's a lot of people that use Bay Street because the subway uh, vents are hot, so that's where they, if they're homeless, they often sit on the grates as you head from Queen and Bay down to Union. And this guy was turning his umbrella towards the homeless person. The first time I start, he did. And I was just out taking street photos. Like I was just literally out to do some street photography, and I noticed that there were about 6 homeless people staggered down this one side of Bay Street, and he was doing it every time. Every time it was, I don't see it, it's not there.
Mhm, mhm.
And I got
Yeah.
a couple photos of him, but I was like really shocked, and it made me realize that he was just a reflection of society. If I don't see it, it's not there. Kind of attitude, and I think a lot of what MJ was mentioning earlier about this whole, if we're not contributing to society because we can't work or we're not building or we don't have a business, then we're not contributing in any way, then we're completely ignored. And I think a person who does that to homeless people as he's walking down so he doesn't see them is just an echo of that social ignorance.
Yeah.
And that's the true core of ableism, right? I don't see it, it doesn't exist.
Well,
And
thanks
and
on that.
I
Yeah, thanks on that. Is I so just to conclude of what I was going to mention is, yeah, it's do we accept the status quo the way it's going forward, or do we unite and get people across the country who are directly affected by all this ableism and lived experience, people with disabilities? I mean, you've got seniors who are disabled, and the system says, oh, well, you turn 65, you don't need all these other resources. You don't need all these tools to help better, to keep your quality of life the best way you can going forward. And we're supposed to treat them with dignity and respect. I mean, we've got veterans who are homeless. I mean, veterans who served this country during the war, the World War, and they're homeless. They don't have access to meds because they don't qualify to have a lot of it met under their pharmacare, their prescriptions that they need, the disability supports, their resources, the tools to help basically work aside with them. I mean, it's part of their disability.
Well,
It's part of who they are, and then we treat them with we're supposed to treat them with dignity and respect. And I want every citizen in Canada to be treated equally.
remember, Trudeau said that the veterans were asking for too much.
Oh,
Let's not forget, right? I mean, and it's like I feel that that he'd do the same thing to us, that we're asking for too much,
Exactly.
and it's like, I'm
Mhm.
trying to nuance my words very carefully here because
Yeah, I hear you. I know.
because my anger about this is like when I sit here and it's like you call it onto the veterans and it's like, yeah, when you have government saying, well, you're asking for too much, and it's like, you're dropping hundreds of billions of dollars onto foreign nations where the support that you give to these people doesn't get to the bottom line to these people. So why should we keep giving money over there when we could go and do something over here with it? I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm a nationalist in this way of thinking that we should take care of our own first before we go out and venture into the world to go and help the world with their problems. We should be the example, the shining light to say, look, we have helped these people out. We've gotten these people off of their drug addiction. We've gotten them the mental health supports that they need. We've put them
Yeah.
into living safe environment to where they have a structured environment that works for them. You know,
Mhm.
instead of going and saying, "Oh, you're asking for too much," and giving billions of dollars away to third-party nations that never helps anybody, but lines organizations in people's pockets. In the, you know,
Yeah.
so my anger about this is sitting here trying to find the right words to say, hey, you know,
Yeah.
you people, you know, and I'm going to use John Cherry for this one, you people, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
really need to start paying attention, because if you're not paying attention, you know, we're the small fry, okay?
Mhm.
And there's groups and people above us that are starting to feel the pinch. And if
Oh,
they
yes.
start to feel the pinch, then they go and say, you people better start listening. Guess
Mm.
what? Things are going to get serious in this nation. And
Oh,
this
huge.
is where, you know, as I was talking before the show about the idea of banding together and creating a political alliance or a political party to go and say, hey, you know, we're going to start here with the people on disability. And that's
Mhm.
probably a good couple million people. That'd be a couple million votes that we could take away from multiple parties and
And
put
then
them into one
also there,
place.
MJ, also, it's not just the people with disabilities, like I want to add on to what you mentioned, because I think that's a brilliant idea, by the way. But it's also their relatives. I mean, they vote too. I mean, anyone's affiliated with that person. So now you add on even more millions of people that are
Exactly.
affected, right?
And it's a cascading thing
Yeah.
of where we can go and move forward. And you know, and
Yeah.
you know, it's like I was going and looking to the next one because I know Neil's chomping at the bit to get to number 9.
Yeah.
So let's get to number 9 here, and let's
Yeah,
move to the next one here. I can see him chomping over there.
I know. He's like, they're all getting off topic, but it's so informative though. I mean, we all dive into these things, and I mean, it's just things can change for the better for sure, and we're gonna make it happen. Neil, I saw it. It's on you. Go ahead.
Neil, I cannot hear you speaking in the Zoom's call here.
Oh yeah, sorry. I
Yeah,
put my
AJ.
mic off because I was conversing with my son too.
Oh,
Anyway, what I was gonna say is my rationale for including that statement was or one of the rationales for including the statement, because Brent, here in BC, you remember when on the SkyTrain when the government put in the gates at the SkyTrain
right.
stations, the gates to
Yeah.
basically force people to pay to
Yeah, I came
uh,
across that just recently. Yes.
yeah, and remember when they first put them in, um, there was lots of people in wheelchairs that had really low mobility that couldn't access the gates.
Hmm.
And it was a huge thing. Like, I mean, it was a really huge oversight, and that just kind of flags for me that this idea that, you know, we'll build something and we won't even consult. We won't even consult people in wheelchairs or whatever. We'll just build this thing, and if it doesn't work, it's like, oh well, we'll fix it later, and that's basically what they did, right? I mean, they put in these gates, and they did some consultations. I mean, I'll give them that. They did some consultations. I have a friend that was involved in those consultations, but they basically said, well, we don't want to listen to your consultation. We don't want to do what you're saying. Because basically the pushback was that, you know, we think it's there's a better option than gates, and the government said, well, we want the gates because we want money, right? And so they just
Yeah.
basically forced on these gates, and then it's like, oh well, now these don't work for the people in the chairs. Like, oh well, we'll have to figure out something, you know, after the fact. And it's always like,
Yeah.
it's always like tacked on after the fact. They're like, oh well, let's deal with this now that we've kind of effed this up. We'll fix it, you know, after the fact now.
Well, because where the gates are, people that are watching live, if you're listening later, there's scanning device there where you scan your card
Scan
in,
your card, yeah.
and and it's higher up from where you would actually be in a wheelchair or any accessibility device going through. You have to raise your arm up to scan in onto the reader, right? So some people may not be able to do that. And if you're in a wheelchair, it's going to be very difficult. So now they say, well, exactly what you mentioned. Oh, we'll work on it later. I mean,
Yeah,
and
Toronto has
yeah.
on the TTCs, so they have one gate that's specifically for wheelchair accessible, but there's two scanners on it. There's a
Oh,
higher one and a lower one.
oh,
They
that's
can just add a lower one. Like it's not.
yeah,
Yeah, well, that's what
yeah.
they could have done,
It should
right? But they
done
just
in the
like
first.
forced it in, and like let's figure it out later after
Yeah,
we've built it. We'll
And then
figure it
if
out
you're
later.
a shorter person, you're
yeah,
not gonna read. Like so, like people that are little people, right? They
yeah.
have I forgot their name. They're never gonna reach up there no matter what. Like it's the level of, or you're waiting for somebody who's taller than you to scan your card so you can be independent and go where you're going. That that makes no sense at
I
all.
it's really frustrating, especially if there's a malfunction on it for whatever reason. Then you gotta wait for an attendant. And the part that really gets me is why do we even have these gates? Like it was supposed to be the honor system. I mean, our taxes all pay for this service, but that's another whole topic in itself. But I found that as a huge barrier. For sure, because yes, Minnie, you're right. I mean, there should be two options on there for scanning. Another part that really gets me too is about any kind of business or like an apartment building or a mall, even a mall going in where they don't have automatic doors. You should be able to just push a button and the door opens automatically. Some malls don't have it, so now you have to manually try and pull that door open, and some of those doors are heavy, like they're very heavy.
Or
Our
or they
building,
have them and they don't work, which is
Yeah, or
another
they don't. Yeah,
thing.
our building is run by a key fob. It looks like a credit card.
right.
It's magnetic. Okay, so um, to get into if you were in a wheelchair to get into the laundromat, good luck. You might be able to reach the key fob on the outside to get into the laundromat, but to get out is a little flip lever above the door handle. And if you're in a
Oh,
wheelchair, you're not getting out of the laundromat. Second
oh,
thing I noticed was
okay. Oh, not good.
there's the the laundry card, because it's a laundromat. It's run by a third party laundry company that provides the machines. And to load your laundry card, if you're in a wheelchair, you're SOL, because the machine is too high up on the wall
Oh,
to even check your balance on your laundry card. I was
mhm.
watching. I had to help a woman in a wheelchair just 2 weeks ago in our laundry room, and I thought this building is really inaccessible. Like the key fob in the lawn in the elevator is okay, but if you were coming in off a street and you wanted to tap your card to get into the inside second set of doors from coming off the street,
Mhm.
you're not reaching it. And then you've got to pull. As soon as you tap the card, you've got to pull the door. There's no
Right.
automatic push button to get the door open. The door does not start opening the moment you hit your key fob. Like, this building is so inaccessible, and I think if someone buys the building, they're probably going to tear it down and put a condo in place, because the lower level of the building is all storefront. It's a Popeyes, there's a Dairy Queen, there's a couple other buildings along, and the whole main level of the street is all retail or bars,
Yeah,
and
but Alan.
above it is the building.
Yeah, what
Inaccessible.
I was gonna kind of comment to you on that is that reminds me of a place I lived at. It was a brand new place. We saw it getting built right from ground up. And the first thing they didn't do was not put a fob system on their push button on the door. And the reason why is because the owner said it was going to become too expensive. I found out through the contractors, the developers who built it, and they said the owner didn't want to pay the actual initial fee to actually install it in. And I said, why? well, number one, it was going to be too expensive, but also here's the kicker: people listening to this or watching this live today, they're going to probably shake your heads, going, "What? This makes no sense." The owner felt that persons with disabilities wouldn't be living in that building, or anybody who had an accessibility need in a wheelchair or scooter. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, there's no way you get a
Like,
scooter.
wow.
There's no way you get a scooter between the two main doors of our building. There's no way you get a scooter in there because you got to come in, turn to the left to access the key fob, and then your scooter would be automatically behind on the wrong side of the door that opens inward to get through. So you literally have to turn the scooter right back up so that when you pulled the door open, you were facing the way to go in. And their answer to security to make residents secure is a paper note over a plastic sleeve that says, "Do not let non-residents in the building. Only people with a key fob." That's their answer to, because we've had people knock on the doors and rattle door handles. There's no security in the hallway. They have one security camera over the lobby. That's it. So.
Wow, thank you on that, Ellen. That kind of goes to show that accessibility. I mean, there needs to be a standard. Every single building that's residential where people are going to and from needs to be accessible. And that, like I say again, a place I lived at, when they said, oh well, they didn't think anyone was going to be needing any kind of accessibility device getting into the building to and from. Are you kidding me? Anybody's going to need that in the future, and regardless, it needs to be there. And that's just so ableist. Yeah. So anyway, I'm not even going to rant on that. I'll just
Well, social.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're approaching 2:00, so I didn't know how people's time. I was thinking we probably only have time maybe for one more instead of, I was hoping to get through 5, but it looks like we're only gonna get through 4, which is fine. But let's go on to the next question here. And the next one was, this is a fun one. It's very kind of in your face, not fun. I mean, in the sense that it's very blunt, I'll say.
Point, yeah.
The point 9 is locking your dog inside a hot car is a crime. Putting PWDs in unsafe or in unhealthy situations is very bad also. So I'll repeat that. Locking your dog inside a hot car is a crime. Putting PWDs in unsafe and in unhealthy situations is very bad also.
MJ, go ahead first.
Oh, MJ, your mic is off, MJ.
Okay, sorry. It popped up and told me I was speaking. I don't know what else I can really add, because I've covered a lot of all of this statement in the previous part of this conversation several times. And I think, I mean, honestly, I just want to put the politicians on a hot card. That's really where I'm at. See how they enjoy it, because that's really what they do to the rest of us. Is, they've got us. Actually, it goes back to, I'm going to just go and take a movie quote or in a scene from a movie. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. It was from 1992 called Pure Country. And there was a scene where he was talking about the dancing chicken. And the dancing chicken, the only way to get the dance is kept turning the heat up on the element, so the chicken kept dancing. And the guy went and said, I could never figure out for the life of me why the chicken never just jumped off. Right? And that's what they do to us, is we're the dancing chickens. Right? And they keep us dancing because there's nowhere for us to go to jump off. And that's the problem. And that's the real problem.
I think of the lobster, that we get so conditioned to the temperature of the boiling water because it's being turned up so gradually that we're so used to it till we boil. But I like the dancing chicken. That's a good one. Despite
Yes,
not seeing the movie, or maybe I have. Um, I just think that I look back at what my brother-in-law said that when I was about to move to Kingston, that because I was disabled, I should be in a group home, or people with disabilities should be in institutions, not taking apartments. And he's very right-wing Christian, and I took it with a grain of salt because I knew he's a very righteous, ignorant person. But it made me start thinking um, about the perception of people with disabilities, and I think if the politicians had their way, we'd still be in institutions and group homes. I think it's the fact that they were so underfunded that they were forced to close, and many people with mental health issues and many people with disabilities were just thrown out to the wolves to survive on our own. Um, I'm glad I'm not in an institution and they can kiss my ass. I'm never gonna let them put me in one, but it's definitely scary, the perception I think society has of, hey, that disabled person is renting an apartment. I could have used that apartment. Now I have to pay double. So it creates a divide between middle class and lower class right off the hop without even saying a word.
Thank you, Alan, on that, and I'm gonna chime in on that too. It's and I've said this many times, and I pretty well echo what what you've mentioned to MJ and Alan and anyone who's probably listening to us now. They're probably thinking, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So what I'm gonna say is, would we treat our animals, our pets, our dogs exactly inhumane? No. Inhumane way? No. We're gonna treat them with dignity and respect. I would hope that people would treat their animals with respect, right? You take care of your pets, right? Yeah. You make sure they've got water, you make sure they've got food, you make sure that they are taken care of. They're not in a hot car. They're not, you gotta keep the window open enough where they got ventilation going in. But do we compare disabled people against pets? No, I mean, no. I mean, we should all be treated with respect and dignity and autonomy, allowed to make that decision. Do we tie a dog up in a cage? I mean, or not in a cage, but in an area where they need to run amok, in their backyard? Yeah, I mean, do we tie them up? You can only go so far. No, we let the dog run loose, right, in the surrounding area. As a comparison, no, I don't like to really compare, but I know we're just saying that on the statement. But people with disabilities should be treated with dignity and respect and have full autonomy, allowed to make decisions that are best for their needs, not with what the government says. And I mean, nothing against the government. And I want to make sure I say this very straightforward. I have nothing against government saying we're going to have contractors building housing. Okay, great. We need housing built in this country. Absolutely. Okay. But we also need PWD to live where they want to live, right? If they want to live in a certain community, they want to live in a certain type of housing, you want to live in a townhouse, you want to rent a basement suite, you want to live in a modular house, you want to live in a condominium. I mean, God forbid if we want to raise people's freaking income so they can actually afford to live there, because landlords are going to look and say, well, how much is your income? You get that two-tiered system there in British Columbia. Oh, you get or whatever province you're in. Oh, you get that much for housing? How much you gonna live on? You're gonna use your support to live? Oh, no, we want you to live comfortably. See, that's the thing. They actually hurt the actual recipient or the person who wants to rent, because they say, oh well, we don't want you to suffer. So maybe the government will actually give you a rate increase. Again, these programs are designed to not give you an increase, because what they do is they skip a year, give a year, skip a year, and they give themselves a pat on the shoulder. Look what we did. But there's more to do. You know what? Let's just get the money out to people so that they can actually have, and I'm kind of echoing what you mentioned, Minnie, earlier, like let people make a decision that's good for them. Just do it now. Don't let people suffer, because at the end of the day, we all are going to get disabilities in life. The politicians are protected right now, yes, but after you retire, you're still going to get a disability. Yes, you're still going to suffer, but you're going to have meds to take care of you, right? But maybe you might find a time in your life that maybe certain meds won't take care of you. And I'm not doing a comparison against disabled against say politicians, but I just want you to understand, like, decision making that you make now are going to have a whole ripple effect throughout society amongst every single person. And I mean, is it going to come down to voting time? Absolutely, it's going to come down to voting time, and who has our best interest, and it's who's actually going to do, not talk. I mean, words are cheap. I could say, hey Neil, let's have the king. Let's have, I don't know, King Charles on. What do you think? Or
we almost had a chance to get a king on, didn't we? But we
Yeah,
won't
yeah,
we won't
no,
go there.
we won't go there now. But you know what I mean? I mean, I could say, yeah, no, that we're gonna do it. And they'll say, Brent, that's all talk. That's all talk. I'll go, yeah, but we're gonna do. And I say, well, yeah, in reality, it would be nice, wouldn't it? But I guess the moral of the story, what I'm trying to get across is, let's just take care of our citizens in this country. Let's don't have excuses of, oh, well, it's the other government's fault. They were in power, or our government, yeah, there's more to do. Work together. Let's create a positive environment for every single person in this country. Build the housing. Yeah, it's been neglected for 40 freaking years or more. But I think everyone should have the housing that they need. Do they? Of course, people want to not be able to pay excessive amount for housing. Yeah, I mean, it's treated as a commodity right now. It shouldn't be. So give people enough money to rent where they want to live. And the government says, well, we'll give you RGI. Okay, great, rent geared to income. Okay, but if you want to live in the private sector, which a majority of PWD live in the private sector, I mean, there are lots of
In market value, yeah.
Yeah,
Market value,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you want to give them enough money so that they can keep living in that. Now, okay, so how about here's a concept to the government across Canada. Give a deal to the show property owners, lower down their property taxes. And here's an exchange, is that you lower the property taxes down, but you say, okay, we're going to do this for you, but you now need to rent to anybody who can now afford that rent. And if you don't, we'll now take away your business license. So you give them an ultimatum. You say, yeah.
You know what really grabs me, Brent, is that you're seeing all these new buildings going up, these new condos, and
right.
the older buildings are not getting, they're not
Maintained.
getting facelifted, they're not getting renovated in any real way, because as far as the owner is concerned, that's still an asset on the books.
Yep.
And they don't have to do jack shit. And it is cheap, it is
That's
more
what we go.
profitable for it to be torn down so they can put something else in place than for it to actually be. So what happens is, unless it's a landmark building, if they can tear down all these high rises that were built before 2018, particularly in Ontario, then the rent control is gone. Hey, that's one less high rise on Jane and Finch. That's one more less high rise in Jamestown and off Wellesley downtown, or whatever town is, whatever city is. If they can start eliminating the rent control buildings by replacing them, they'll do it, and they'll do it without batting an eye.
Yeah, actually, go ahead, MJ. But then I want to get Minnie's take on this too, on this topic.
Actually, I'll wait. I'll let Minnie go first.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Minnie. Thanks, MJ.
Well, yeah, part of me is exhausted. So just getting diagnosed. So with being diagnosed, and I'm in CAMH, and CAMH is telling me I'm not sick enough to be admitted in the hospital, which meant I had to go back home, still be depressed, still be suicidal, they gave me sleeping pills, trazodone, and then to go back to a family doctor and get referred. Then I got a therapist of 6 sessions, I got a therapist of 4 sessions, and another therapist that I pay out of pocket.
Wow.
And my family, you're fine. Just, sleep a little, eat more, go back to work.
Oh,
And
geez.
then the jobs I was getting, so like call center jobs were the easier jobs I could get hired for in like 2003 up until 2007. The
Yeah.
jobs were mad at me that I wasn't maintaining the business casual attire.
Hmm.
Well, I'm in a mental crisis.
Yeah.
So hygiene was going down the toilet as fast as it could. Then I had to keep a job or get hired for a job, say enough things to get hired in the job, which took
Mhm.
all my energy, then pay attention in training. And most of the trainings, if you don't pass by 80%, the job fires you for the call
Mhm.
center. And then
You can't
that
type
pro
fast enough too.
it's not about typing fast enough. It's just understanding the material. So when I worked at Bell Canada and Pizza Hut and Shopping Channel and Amex, all those companies, they have a lot of policies you have to remember on the phone.
Oh, yes.
And if
Yep.
you don't remember it, and then if you're stressed or you're starving or you didn't shower or you forgot deodorant or whatever it, people are talking about you. So the coworker environment is talking about you. Then you're trying to pay attention to the job. You're literally hanging on to the next paycheck every 2 weeks just to
Okay.
get paid, or like make it through the whole day of one day of training so you get paid for that day. So most of
Yeah.
the time I didn't qualify for EI, and then to go back on OW, and then to go, but like the system itself of someone who I was functioning. I was a functioning, productive member of society who had a job, who had an income, then had a mental crisis, then had to go through the system. And the system never supported me in a way that
Hmm.
I got treatment fast enough, I got diagnosed fast enough, or I kept my apartment. Me almost losing this apartment, it's because I magically filled the application for ODSP and I magically dragged out court long enough with mediation that when the back pay came in from ODSP, that number was exactly enough to pay the back rent because of timing. Housing costs now is like $2,000. If
Oh,
I
yeah.
was if I owed back rent of 6 months of $2,000,
Ooh.
that's my family didn't have the money I had. My rent was 700 back then, and I was
Yeah.
behind rent for 6 months or so, almost a year. My family didn't have the money to pay my landlord. That they claimed they had their six-figure jobs, but I don't know what they're doing, they're spending. So the way that they pass it on to family is supposed to help you, but if family don't have the money to keep you housed, my mom was wishing for me to go to the homeless shelter, wishing for the
Um,
home, trying to tell me that the homeless shelter would be the best thing for me. And I'm like, we just need, like, if she was able to work out a payment plan with my landlord to pay out my rent, different situation. And then Rent Bank doesn't help you if you're eligible for OW or ODSP because they
yeah.
believe ODSP and OW is able to keep you housed when you're behind on your rent.
Yeah. 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 They have that. They have that in BC. Same thing. But if people have to go to a rent bank because they can't have enough for rent, then we got a serious problem going on with our systems. Why we're not giving people enough money to pay for these rents.
The
I
whole
don't.
system is so broken. The rent
Yeah.
banks are really the food banks
Yeah.
of finance,
Yeah.
and it's just not a band-aid.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because that's another big topic that we'll dive into one day. Because that's one segment. Yeah, Neil, I want to kind of refocus on that for sure. Because that's a huge topic that I think it'd be very interesting to dive into. Because now we'll be talking about like rent control, vacancy control, and I'll get Dan on that segment too, because I think it'd be really good. Any next topic at all? That
We
or
can't go to
all right, maybe
the
we just do.
last. We can't go to the last one, or at least
Okay.
introduce it maybe.
Okay, we'll just
Um,
use it and then we'll.
we'll just introduce this one. So number 10, and this is about autonomy more than anything.
Okay.
Just bear
Good
that in
topic.
mind. But number 10 was persons with disabilities have sex, get over it. So think about that in very autonomy point of view.
Yeah, yeah.
Persons with disabilities have sex, get over it.
That'll be the hanging fruit for next, I guess, the next segment. So
Yeah.
yeah, to have.
Well, let's start with this. In British Columbia, they make it difficult for you to go and have a relationship. If you go and move in with this person that is making $40,000 a year, you will automatically be cut off because they're making too much money. So having a relationship within the disability welfare system that's currently built in place is
To be
practically
discouraged.
impossible. Yeah, exactly. So you're forced to be lonely. And secondly, if they have assets and you have a little bit of assets, you merge assets, all of a sudden you have too much assets because they base it also on assets to be able to help you. So in other words, it's like you're put into a position of perpetual loneliness. And, sure, you could have flings and all the rest of that, but having a meaningful relationship and living with somebody, unless they're basically like you on disability, even then, that
For
becomes
both.
an absolute problem as well, because they don't go and double your disability. They give you just enough money for one more person. And when you have two disabled people living together, you actually really need that double amount.
You
So,
become a burden to the other person. Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
so,
you're equally
yeah.
getting less, actually.
it makes it very difficult to go and have a relationship. Plus, because you're on welfare / disability, a lot of the people that are employed tend to look down at you, and they look less at you because you're disabled, and they don't want to go and deal with it. They rather would have somebody functioning and a functional person.
Yeah,
So
why am I dating you when I can't take you home to mom and dad? So
yeah,
therefore,
yeah,
the
it's
shame of it.
so
Yeah.
it's not, it's because it's all based on a financial viability scale these days of what you can provide financially, and this is where the system goes and degrades our lives by going and making it more difficult to go and have a happy life. Like I said earlier, the Constitution says life, liberty, and security of the person. Well, the way the system's set up, you don't get what pretty much you maybe get some life, and you get a little bit of liberty, but not much. And as for security, they're just dangling that in front of us right now.
Mhm.
Basically the system basically punishes you for having wanting to have a relationship, and because the cost of living going higher. Oh well, we can put you into subsidized housing. Oh, but if you both move in together into a social housing or supportive housing, whatever you want to call it. Oh, but now it'll be one income for you, and hey, if any of you get more asset level, yeah, we're gonna claw it off one check. So you get one check, one income,
The,
one check. Yeah.
the only hack is to really look together to find something that is maybe a 2 bedroom and go and declare yourself roommates sharing the cost,
Right.
even
But
if
on
you're in a
Not
relationship and not telling them.
the
That's the only
problem the
hack. That's the
problem on
only,
that though, Alan, is that if you are going under a government housing type of deal, that it doesn't work. If
see,
you are
here's
in private sector housing,
well,
market
well,
housing, yeah,
it won't work if you're
well, no, because
it won't work if you're if you're renting a housing in the 1 bedroom, because then they can discredit the roommate thing. But if there's
right.
2 rooms in it, you can
But
kind of get around with it. It's
yeah,
yeah,
something that
yes and
Jordan and I
no.
looked at
See, if you're living in a
years
place,
ago.
if you're living in a place with like if I was living, with a female that, and we were in a relationship and she still had her own space, they would make us sign a declaration saying you're not in a relationship, right? So they could go and use that against you saying, oh, you committed fraud and you lied.
Mhm.
So they
mhm,
do play these games,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
they're not above playing these games to go and find reasons or ways to go and disqualify you from the system. So,
mhm.
they basically do these things to base it's all set up to really discourage you from going and having any happiness in your life.
Yeah, or they also
No, it's not.
get,
So like
yeah, go
we're
ahead.
talking about as if we're going to be on the system our entire lives. Some of us actually want to not be on it. Like my mission is not to be on it. So if I'm doing the things that I need now, and I read the policy back to front to back for ODSP, where yeah, getting approved, being eligible, I agree to their rules. I don't have to play by their rules. We're acting
Mhm.
like you always have to play by their rules. No,
Yeah.
I need to make enough money, save enough money, and not be on the system. And yeah, if I have a relationship and we have that conversation, we will have that conversation. Like pick the right person you're going to be with. Much as I could have the casual whatever relationships that I had with the 9-year situation, had no intention of making anything serious about me or making plans. I chose to be in that environment. You can also choose to pick people who are healthy, who make good decisions, who actually understand if they're going to make a commitment with you, they know what the commitment is. So great, we're going to be with people and we're going to choose low-level people that make horrible decisions and just make that your life. We need to be able to make good decisions regardless of what the government says.
Well, yeah,
This is
I mean,
my,
a person should be able
I
to
hope
make
this is my weapon.
yeah, I mean, and having to basically prove to the government, is that
Because
your
I would really like to be with somebody who
yeah,
says, screw the government, I'll take care of you. That's it. That's all I need. A person who's going to make that commitment. Then if they're really going to make that declaration of they're going to defend me, then yeah, we can sign another way and get a prenup where he actually legally agrees to take care of me. There's so many other things that we can do in relationships and situations where we're not just on the government assistance. I'm not trying to be in housing. My grandmother's like, oh, your uncle's in housing. Why don't you go in housing? Well, I don't want to be on the 20-year waiting list. So if
yeah,
I don't want to
exactly.
be on the 20-year waiting list, that means I'm paying market rent. Luckily, I found a place that at the time when I got approved for it in 2007, rent was $725. It's now $960. So I'm going to stay here as long as possible. So if I pay my rent a year in advance, ODSP can't stop me from paying my landlord the month a year in advance.
Exactly. You know, and that's what they see.
And then if they look in my bank account because I had so much money and what happened to it, I give them the receipts from my landlord. My landlord would keep records of me paying my rent, how many months extra in advance, how many times I use my credit card to pay this in advance. Like keep track of receipts, keep track of your records because they're going to ask for it, but don't stop them from making a decision. They're not going to scare me from making a decision that's going to ruin my life.
Yeah. Well,
I do agree with Minnie because like in
totally.
my situation, like I am married. I've been married twice, and the same thing. Like I'm not gonna change my life just because the government says, oh, you shouldn't be married. Like
Yeah.
I'll make that decision, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it does suck though, like that the government is or the ministry is set up in a way that it assumes that we're not capable of making good decisions for ourselves,
Yeah,
right?
it's based on
Yeah.
a particular
Yeah.
definition of a person
Yeah.
with a disability, as if they cannot make any
Yeah.
faculty decisions for themselves, which is my cousin.
Mhm.
My cousin is stuck that way. My cousin depends on my aunt to make every decision for him. When my aunt dies, he gets put into a home. He's 50 years old now. So we're literally hoping that the system, when my aunt dies, is actually going to take care of him until whatever age he dies at. It could be 80, it could be 99, it could be like next week. We have no idea. We're trusting other people to keep him alive, fed and clean, and not like sexually abuse him because that can happen for people that have a disability that aren't able to have consent and all those other things. But for the people that know what the system is and have a good understanding of it, know that the limitations in the disability system of income, assets, marital status are the exact same things that free you from the system. So the way like the way that hero movies know exactly the weakness of the dragon that they're killing, slay the dragon. It's a system. They wrote all the rules. We know all the rules. We don't have to participate and follow any of them.
Dragon
So,
Slayer.
like we also have to deal with the CRA. Like if I earn more income from my business, it was either I do the bare minimum, earn $1,000 a month, or I work my ass off in my business. If you're going to make net profit $12,000 a month, the minute I make $12,000 a month in my business from revenue, that could happen in my business because of the business plan they force me to make to have projections of income in my business, means I'm not on disability for 3 to 4 months for
Right.
1 month of net profit of $12,000. So $1,000, $12,000 a year, or figure out how to make $12,000 a month and tell the government to leave me alone. That I don't have to log in. I don't have to declare, did I leave the province for more than 30 days? I don't have to worry about will they cover my prescriptions. There's so many things that they monitor and control that I don't want them to have that control. And
Yeah.
annoyingly, the disability community and services and everybody, they keep you in the system. Nobody's making a plan or support or services to get you out of the system.
I'm just hoping this is my exit strategy into being self-sufficient. I just haven't figured out my niche yet because there are so many photographers out there. I just haven't, the light hasn't gone off in my head on how to make my camera really make me money, like an artist would use a paintbrush. But once I hit it, I'm done with ODSP. I just got to figure out what that is and how to get into a niche market that maybe has been overlooked. I've
Yeah,
got
I
the
just,
camera for it,
you
but
know, well, you know, Ellen,
Unless
it's
we're talking with a business coach would work. Like a business coach who actually is actually successful in photography. The amount of YouTube channels that I would go to go watch a review of a camera equipment, like it's bigger than just think of it by yourself. You don't have to think of everything by yourself. Like when I pay for coaching and I'm paying thousands of dollars in coaching or whatever Tony Robbins event that he has a $10,000 event. Okay, I need to figure out how to make money to save up for that, to do the $10,000 event, and then keep the receipts for it. Because when the caseworker asks for receipts of what I spent on my business, I can tell them, hey, I need to go to this event. It's a third party. They're charging this money because not everything is on social assistance. The amount of thing is not from the government, but people are very, 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 very successful making millions of dollars. Like Richard Branson technically has a disability, but he's a freaking billionaire.
Mhm.
There are people with a disability that are making a lot of money, and we need to figure out what they're doing. Who are they around? Who they're surrounded? They're not in government assistance programs.
Mhm. Mhm.
That, like, I'm tired of just being in this one-dimensional box when there is a whole 7 billion people on the planet, and I'm going to stay in a government assistance program
Yeah.
when I need to be around the people who are making the six-figure income. Like Tony Robbins had a person who makes his lawn care business. He's in a wheelchair, but he can
Mhm.
ride a lawnmower. He can fully he makes $250,000 US dollars a year in his lawnmower business, and he's in a wheelchair. So clearly,
Wow.
we're talking to the wrong people. We're asking the wrong questions because people are doing it. They're not dependent on the system at all. They're self-sufficient. They're doing it, disability and all, marriage and all, kids and all those things. And we're just looking at the one wall limitation.
Mhm. You need to look at a broader range.
yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
so many people on disabilities that have disabilities have been what's the word I'm looking for? They've been not coaxed, that's not the word. They've been not manicured. It's
Mhm.
kind of like as what our perception has become. Oh, if you're disabled, you need to be on ODSP or something equivalent ish or whatever the one in Alberta is,
Right.
PWD. We've been conditioned to follow a certain narrative. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't have to. I just don't know yet quite how to turn my camera into thousands of dollars in my account every month.
Yeah.
Once I do, um,
I'm in the same boat. I would love to do that too.
I'm like, well, I mean, I've got $10,000 worth of camera gear, easy, and that's not even talking about lights. That's literally 5 lenses and 2 camera bodies that are full frame that can do weddings. It's just that I decided not to do weddings because you need to have a very high amount of insurance that you have to carry, and whether
Yeah.
you get a
Like
wedding
the
or
wedding
not,
singer.
and I couldn't afford it.
Well, also
um,
just the mobility is the thing that
yeah, you need a
is
car, and
preventing
I don't have a
me.
car at the moment, so
Yeah.
it didn't
But
feel right to do
Ellen
weddings.
could be the wedding singer. You know, at the wedding singer. You know.
Uh,
Anyway, we do have to kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we kind of answered that question anyway, so that's good. And
Yeah. I
so,
think we definitely covered a lot.
so next week we can finish off, and the last 5 are very kind of more open-ended and fun. So yeah,
Yeah.
so it should
Cool.
be a good way to finish off have a part 4 next week. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to thank all of our panelists today and everyone tuning in and listening to us rant and rave. And holding the government account. And you know, if you want to be part of the show, definitely reach out to Neil or myself. Neil's not on Twitter. I am for now anyway. But definitely reach out to me, Weatherman2709 on Twitter. Send me a message, or you can reach out to Neil, and Neil will provide his email address to you.
My email address is it should be on the bottom of the video, and it's also at the end of at the end of every video that we do, or at the end of every podcast that we do. It's right at the end. So
yeah, you know, so definitely stay up to date and like subscribe, and that way, if you're not sure what the email is, well, if you subscribe, it's going to pop up and it's going to show you what the email is, and
they're just I have these people saying, why don't you just tell me your email, Neil?
Why?
But I'm gonna get them to look it up, so they have to do more work.
Are you gonna mention my social media?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes,
well, you can
definitely.
you can go and mention
go
yours,
ahead,
Minnie. Yeah, go ahead.
Put it up there.
Yeah, so I'm actively documenting my journey to financial independence, retire early or retire with dignity, living with a disability. And it's the more I focus on what needs to be done, not what ODSP or any government program is limiting. They're limiting my potential, and they don't know my potential, and they don't know where the skills and knowledge I had before. So I'm focusing on that. Yes, I have to lose weight, I have to take my medication, I have to go to my doctor's office and all the appointments. But for the knowledge and ability I have that's still like workable and accessible, that I need to maximize. I would love to have one day I'm on the show and ODSP sends me the letter that I have too much assets. I really want the letter I have too much assets.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and I look forward to having all these further discussions with all of you, and so many more. Like, I mean, there's so many stories and so many people that would love to join in on our panel. You can send in your comments if you. We still have room. I mean, there's always room for growth. I mean, for sure, right? And hearing stories. I mean, if you want to, come on and share your story about personal experience as a person with disabilities, either on whatever government programs that you're on, or if you're an entrepreneur, persons with disabilities. Like, it doesn't matter if you who you are for the person with disability in Canada. Definitely come on and share your stories with us, and ideas, like ideas going forward. And that's the theme too, is productive ideas of how do we change things going forward. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I mean, Minnie's given really great lived experience scenarios of what she's going through, and showing all the inadequacies with ODSP in Ontario and across. I mean, and that's kind of a ripple effect across Canada with any province. BC people having the tools to better their lives in so many ways, making them independent, away from government supports. And government, obviously, we're telling you that what you're doing right now is not working, right? These systems are not working. So work with us. Tell us, what are you going to do for us, right? How are you going to make things better? How are you going to make sure that everybody has a standard of income going forward? Are you going to support a GLBI or a UABI, or whatever it is, any kind of basic income model? I mean, let's all work together. Let's work together as a team, because otherwise the status quo is not working. I mean, we have a lot of great ideas in the disability community across Canada. You just need to learn to listen to us at a table, at a committee table. We tried teaching you about the Canada Disability Benefit, but unfortunately, obviously, it's just you just want your people with their not lived experience stories, right? Yeah, you need to talk to us. So I'm going to get into a whole rant about this.
Yeah, and so my social media is Mini on Cam. Hopefully people can see it. I changed the Zoom name tag with my Mini on Cam. But yeah, it's for me definitely, like, I learned that I became self-employed to not have a boss and a manager, but ODSP has become my boss and my manager. That is not the point of self-employment. That is not the point of being a business owner. I'm supposed to be the owner, not ODSP.
Yeah, you're in charge of yourself. You're in charge of yourself.
Yeah, like
I'm the one
that hunts and kill my income, but I have to tell ODSP what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not there on the hunt. Why do they need to know that I went and hunted and made $1,000 and no, like just that. Like I know there's people with a disability that want to function, that want a business, that want to make an income, but I don't need an extra system monitoring me. I already have that with CRA with taxes.
Exactly.
Well, you're
'Cause-
keeping people employed, as MJ would say.
It's
yeah.
too many people. I need to
Yeah.
fire people.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
firing ODSP is definitely one of the things I need to do as a business owner, is
Here,
to
here.
to completely fire them.
Here, here,
Mhm.
here, here.
They
I know
ODSP,
MJ's
the
just
Donald Trump,
just
I'm
say
sorry,
something.
you're fired letter.
I know MJ's just jumping in that he wants to say something about that one. I know.
Yeah.
Before we end the
Go
segment, I'm just going to quickly pass it over to you, MJ, on that one because I know you want to say something. I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I mean, this is why, I'm against all this gatekeeping, all these bosses, all these reporting and all the rest of this stuff. I truly do believe that if we give people financial education, right, as a basis of, as going in and getting UBI or universally available basic income, they learn about the financial, how to work finances and all the rest of this stuff and how to properly budget. I think that we would actually go and help people get further ahead without having all these people to report to and all this gatekeeping and all of this nonsense that gets in the way of people going in and trying to achieve their personal success. Because one of the biggest problems is the gatekeeping that sits there and you got to go, it's always nagging you. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to report this. I got to do this. At least with the CRA, you only got to do it once a year, right?
Right.
But with all these other government agencies, you're always reporting. I mean, you're always reporting for this, that, and everything else and asking permission and all the rest of this. And I think that, if you give people the right amount of education or the ability to, if they have the ability, that is, because there are a lot of people out there that are disabled that don't have the ability, but you give whoever's representing them the ability to go and make the best decisions for them, then I think things would be a lot better all the way around. And it's not just for people that are disabled, it's also veterans and unemployed and all the rest of everybody in between that don't need gatekeepers in the way, going and sitting here figuring out ways to disqualify them from going and getting either permanent assistance or just temporary assistance. And for most people, they truly don't want to be on the system. They don't want to be dealing with a permanent assistance. They don't want it being over their head. All they want is just a quick bit of help, and then so they can move forward in life. And that's what people truly want. And if society were to give that to them, I think we would see a lot better, a lot less need is if we give people the tools. And I think that's where it really needs to be at.
Yeah, I was thinking that because how families are helping their family members with a disability, and with my online business and with e-com business and the way the pandemic, a lot of people had to change the way they were earning income. It's very possible that a family member could set up an online business for their family member with a disability and they're business partners. And it's in and it could the way that certain businesses like affiliate marketing or e-com or Amazon FBA or all those things do make people money because when you go to the CRA website and you look at the industry codes, the knock codes, it's reported that that industry, how much revenue that industry is making. It's just the education. So a lot of people need to not call everything a scam. If you never actually made $1 in that industry, it cannot be a scam. It's just you don't have the knowledge or the skills to do it. And it's not going to come from the employment support, self-employment, small business supports in the ODSP system. Because if they don't believe online business is viable, they're not going to teach it to you. Like I teach online business because it's how I made my first dollar in 2003. 2003, you didn't know the internet could do anything of making you money. But when that check came in the mail and it was in my name and it cleared at the bank, of course you want to make more over and over again. And when people buy me a coffee or like they buy a product or the YouTube partner program, that money is the reason I'm sitting in this chair. So for me to go and, oh, it's a scam. No, because I have to report CRA that income for last year, this year on my tax return.
Yep.
You may not be doing it because you don't understand it or don't have figured it out, but I'm doing it. Like when I report my tax return and I put the industry code on my tax return and the forms I fill out, it's from the money from the internet. So we have way more technology. We're not using it. We're not using the services. We're just not using the ability that we have to actually tell the government to leave me alone.
With that being said, thank you very much, each and every one of you, for coming on today. I look forward to our next week's panel, and yeah, it's going to be great. And showing what the people's ability, what you're able to do, use the technology to your advantage, and be your own boss. Be your own boss. Don't let the government be your boss, because they're just over there overseeing these systems that are designed to actually suppress people down. And we can change that. We need to work with the government to teach them that these systems don't need to be the way they are. They don't need to be designed the way they are. Exactly what you mentioned.
I want to learn more online, but I'm definitely I've noticed that with my disability, I'm more hands-on. I almost need to be in the same room with a person a couple
Right.
times. Like I've tried to watch YouTube videos on how to do affiliate marketing and stuff in the past, and I get overstimulated, and then I shut down and go watch something else. So I'm trying to understand the whole marketing and the whole online affiliate marketing stuff. I just haven't figured out my DIY hack on how to absorb it. I can't sponge it in yet. There's some tripwire that's hitting me mentally, and I don't quite know, but I'm not far off. I'm just like stuck.
You'll MacGyver it some.
Yeah, exactly.
This thing I understand. I understand this thing. I just got to figure out how to make it money.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. It's been a great show.
Next week we'll talk about pink unicorns to finish off the.
Yeah, we'll talk about pink unicorns. This pink unicorn right here, everyone.
Yeah.
This one right here, this culprit right here.
So tune in next week for pink unicorns.
Yes. Yeah. And until then, thanks everyone for tuning in today.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks.